Okay, let's talk through all these golf events that you have coming up.
Gabby, I'm glad you asked. Got my calendar right here. July 17th at Red Run, and then July 31st, I have the American Golf Outing for the Cancer Society.
I also have the American Cancer Society golf outing on the 31st, and also I got yours on the 18th, buddy.
Yeah, I'm gonna be there.
Whoa, boys, these are a lot of events and golf outings.
Well, you want me to miss my own golf tournament?
Yeah, they're all great cars.
I mean, this is...
Hold on. I got this. Guys, I got this. Don't worry about it. Hold on a second.
He always says
Guys, thanks for coming so fast. How are you? Remember the guys from Randy Wise, right? Sir. The Randy Wise Celebrity Golf Tour.
Watch for the eye.
Stay tuned.
It's the Randy Wise Celebrity Golf Tour. Some of the biggest names in Michigan sports. And some, well, not so much. Brought to you in part by Premier Security Solutions, Fairway Packing Company, and Swiss Insurance. Watch episodes at woodwardsports.com.
We're off and running here on the Morning Woodward Show here on the Woodward Sports Network. Jeff Iafrate, your host as always. Sam Flannel, my partner in crime. JB in the audio booth, and Alex Westfall in the TD booth. And joining us today, also special guest Matt Broders in the chair, hanging out with the boys. So appreciate him a ton. But Sam Flannel, on this wonderful Wednesday morning, how are you doing?
Hump day, that's right. You know, I still am loving the morning energy, getting used to the earlier wake-ups, but it's all good because there's nothing better than waking up and talking sports with my good friend Jeff Iafrate. And of course, guys like JB, Alex Westfall, Matt Broders in the house. Lucas will be here soon. Can't ask for anything better on a Wednesday morning.
No, you can't. And it's the first day, technically, of summer.
Really?
So that's great news, although allergies have been pissing me off. Other than that, summer's been great. The heat, JB, I see you hate allergies as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they're the worst.
So much.
Yeah, it's been a consistent thing for me, being affected every single morning. But you know what? We're getting through it, and I'm excited. You guys could have been anywhere else, but you're here, so we appreciate you for tuning in. Don't forget, if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel, leave a like on the stream, and if you can't watch us live, it's all good. You can go back and rewatch the podcast or listen to the podcast on the podcast app you listen to, whether that's Apple, Spotify, doesn't matter. Go check us out and leave a 5-star review. If you're watching on the website, woodwardsports.com, don't forget to check out the latest news and articles, especially by our good friend here, Matt Broder, who writes for the Detroit Lions. They have updates, show clips, and much more, including some merchandise, which I'm wearing right now. I got the Woodward Sports Network Tigers Edition t-shirt on. JB had the what was it? The Monty Williams. What was the actual design? What did it say?
Oh, so it was Motown Monty.
Motown Monty.
Yeah.
See, you can't get them anywhere else. Get them on the woodwardsports.com store. But we got a lot to get to today. We're going to try and split it. I know the NBA draft is tomorrow, but still a ton of Lions to talk about. New Lions alternate uniforms, or helmets rather, and they're being released today. And we're going to get to that a little later in the show. Also, Brandon Dent, our Woodward Sports Pistons beat writer, is going to join us to talk about Troy Weaver's press conference yesterday. And he said a lot of interesting things. Both Troy and Steve Yzerman spoke yesterday upon each of their respected drafts. And they each had a lot of interesting comments. So we're going to get to that. Good Morning Football had an NFC tier list. And you're going to want to see this because I don't know how in the hell the Lions are where they're at. And we're going to discuss that and much more. Tyreek Hill, Bijan Robinson revealed their top 5 all-time running back list. I want to get your guys' reaction to it because when I first saw it, I couldn't believe it either. But other than that, we're going to start here with the pressers, the Troy Weaver and Steve Yzerman press conferences, because they said a lot of interesting things yesterday. And Weaver, spoke to the media, and he was asked a ton of different questions, one of them being, are you still willing to trade that 5th overall pick? And he responded with, we're definitely still looking at all options, which, again, he's not going to show his hand. Troy Weaver never does. So that's an expected answer. He also answered a question regarding Monty Williams' input, and he said since he's been hired, he's been a part of everything, interviews, on-court workouts, watching film. He's jumped in with 2 feet. He's ready. He has a ton of keen insight on the players that we value. So there you go. Monty Williams is involved ASAP. And he also asked or somebody asked, I think it was Mike Curtis, if I'm not mistaken, could be incorrect on that, asked Troy Weaver about the new CBA and what that would mean for the Detroit Pistons, because you see teams like Phoenix and Golden State, they're not going to be able to keep everybody. So if you're the Detroit Pistons, you could potentially be a suitor for any of these guys that, have to eventually depart from their respected teams. And Troy responded with, there's some thought there. Teams will really start looking at their roster comp and how it plays out with their contract. It's definitely some work and thought to make sure we're ready. So Pistons preparing for anything. So it was interesting. Steve Yzerman also spoke, and listen, he revealed he was pretty straightforward, like Yzerman typically is. And he says right now he plans on staying at 9, selecting at 9. Now 17 he also expects, but I think that's more up in the air. Again, he doesn't expect to move it right now, but anything could change in the future. And again, the Grindline podcast did a great job of laying out the pre-draft presser notes on their Twitter. And again, Steve Yzerman also says there's no science for trading for players by giving up picks, just that you would rather have the player or the pick. So a lot going on in Detroit right now. And again, Sam, yesterday they both spoke. Any thoughts on anything they said? Anything specific that stood out to you from Troy or from Steve?
Well, one thing that stood out to me about Troy Weaver was his comments on Monty Williams. I thought they were very, very encouraging on how big of a role he's already taking in the position, because Monty Williams, we all know that he had a lot going on in his personal life. He had just been fired from Phoenix, and Detroit had to make him the highest paid coach in NBA history in order to get him. Mm-hmm. So in a lot of ways, the narrative was they gave him an offer that he couldn't refuse, even though maybe he still wanted to be retired. The reality of the situation is he is a great coach. He does have a golden opportunity to build the Pistons back up. It was an absolute gift that the Pistons were able to get someone who is proven and who does have a track record like Monty Williams. And I think it's encouraging. I think he's going to play a big role in turning this team around. I think he's going to play a big role in this team maybe doubling their win total from last year, which isn't outside the realm of possibility. So that's the thing that definitely stood out to me the most. I mean, Steve Yzerman, he's always very, very straightforward with everything. He's obviously done a great job so far, but there is, I think, a little bit of pressure for the Red Wings to maybe make the playoffs this year. Although you see the 8 seed Florida Panthers and who they have, they might have a lot up against them. My question, though, is, and I'm kind of curious to see what you think, Jeff. Mm-hmm. At some point, is the patience going to run out on these guys? And I'm not saying that they deserve any flack so far yet, except Troy Weaver, I think the 2020 draft, we've already discussed that.
Right.
He's done a lot to make up for it. But with the Pistons, and I know a lot of this has to do with Cade Cunningham being out last year, but we haven't really seen anything in the win column, although we expect to see more this year. And with the Detroit Red Wings, they were flirting with a playoff bid midway through the season, and then they ended up going on a bit of a skid and having to sell off guys like Filip Hronek and Tyler Bertuzzi and Jacob Vrana to get more of an arsenal for next year. So is there added pressure on both of them to win sooner? Maybe show some tangible progress in the win column next year?
Yeah, I think there's definitely pressure more so on Troy, and I can even admit that. I mean, Steve Yzerman has the resume at least, so they both have leashes. Troy's just a lot shorter, in my opinion. That's what I think. Especially from what you've seen from both franchises over the last couple of years since they both started. Stevie, you've at least seen not only the progression, but now you made the head coaching change last season. It seems like to be the right decision. You're seeing immediate impact, and you're seeing the players he's drafted look pretty damn good. So there's a lot there. For Troy, you have the talent. I know people would argue they're not a fan of his first draft in 2020, which, okay, fair. But regardless, he brought in plenty of young players, young talented players for Pistons fans. But the other part of it is winning games, which he has not done yet. He officially just made really the biggest decision besides drafting Cade and Monty. So we're going to see how this works out. But I would say Troy's leash is a lot shorter than Stevie's. But they both have some leeway. I don't think Troy's on the hot seat. I know people would bring that up. The Pistons don't win. If they don't make the play-in, he's on the hot seat. let's just wait and see how this thing works out. Part of it is on Monty, part of it's on Troy. Troy's job is just getting talent, and I think he'll continue to do that. But both are on leashes, but Troy's is significantly shorter.
Well, the problem with Troy Weaver and his leash and the Detroit Pistons is no matter how you slice it, and I know there were a lot of circumstances, and we always talk about Cade Cunningham being out, but that was extremely significant. Despite all of that, there is a worst NBA record in the NBA stench on the Detroit Pistons right now. That's just the reality of the situation. And I don't think play-in or he's on the hot seat, but I do expect at least 30 wins.
Yeah, I would agree with
think that is very, very reasonable, presuming they're all healthy, because they do have their core, I think, in Cade, Jaden Ivey, and Jalen Duren, and who knows what they're going to do with them. But I think even if they make no moves, that's a very solid foundation, particularly for me, Cade Cunningham. And they went out and made a splash hire in Monty Williams as the head coach. So I think they're doing a lot of good. Mm-hmm. I think this is the year where you see more in the win, see it reflected more in the win column. And if you don't, that's when the questions have to start arising. But I think they're both headed in the right direction at the very least. I think every team in Detroit is headed in the right direction.
Everybody in the chat, feel free to chime in. Just shout out some people. We got Mike G in the chat, as usual. Jack Harrington, Detroit Dabber. Thank you guys for tuning in. Big Play Jay, appreciate you guys. And now officially, there was one comment I did want to get to, which was Eric's comment, which I thought was pretty funny. He said, Steve Yzerman holds the leash. He is in no way on the leash.
See, here's the one thing, and this is where I got to push back just a tad. I even have to push back against Darren McCarty, who I love, but I've also had my battles with, and who sits in this seat on Big D Energy from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Monday through Friday. When talking about Steve Yzerman, obviously he's very, very biased. Steve Yzerman has a big role in Darren McCarty having 4 Stanley Cups, by the way. That just putting that out there. But when he was describing Steve Yzerman and his tenure 1 to 10, he gave Steve Yzerman a 10. And for the record, I think Steve Yzerman has done a very fine job so far with his draft picks and his acquisitions, and the fact that he walked into an absolute dumpster fire of a situation has done a lot in righting that, especially with the salary cap, having to still have those bad contracts of Franz Nielsen and still paying Justin Albuquerque. I understand that. But in order to get a 10, you got to at least make the playoffs. He's heading towards being a 10, but he ain't a 10 yet. There's still some questions.
Yeah, and you know what's funny and interesting that I took away from both Steve and Troy's press conference is they both got asked a question about fit versus BPA. And that's a conversation at least Pistons fans have been having at a heavy extent at 5. And they both answered the same way. Basically, we're not going for fit. We're going for best player available. I know Troy's analogy was a little more interesting. And do you have that? We have that clip, Alex. If you could play it, it's Troy Weaver at his presser about his clip about swinging for long balls.
I like the long ball. I'm not bunting or trying to slap it into short center. Like, I'm gonna take a big swing.
And there you have it. Troy Weaver said, I'm not bunting. We're going for the long ball. We're taking the big swing. And that's a common theme between Troy and Steve. So, again, both franchises, I think, are heading in the right direction, but they need talent, nonetheless.
Yeah, at some point you do need to make that big swing, but the move has to be there. Obviously, the Pistons were hoping they could get that big swing in the draft by getting the number 1 overall pick and being able to draft Victor Wembanyama, or at the very least getting a top 3 pick, where I would agree that there's a big drop-off between Wemby, Scoot, and Brandon Miller, and then the rest. But at the same time, there's still some very, very talented players that you can get at number 5. Players like Taylor Hendricks, who we both like, that I think would be good fits for this team. But if the move is out there to be made, particularly the one for Zion Williamson that got floated around ESPN, in which they would only have to give up Isaiah Stewart, Bojan Bogdanovic, and the number 5 overall pick, I would take that move 100 times out of 100. If that is actually available and a team like New Orleans is foolish enough to do that, those are the type of moves I would be okay with making, but they have to be there. Obviously, if they have to pick at number 5, I think that they can still get a good player that will help their team.
And it's funny when you hear Troy say things like that, when he says, I don't want to bunt. We're going for the long ball, meaning taking the player with the highest upside or a player that, might not be the best fit, but he's the best player available. You know who doesn't think like that? Stan Van Gundy. When he takes Luke Kennard at pick 12. You think he was thinking, we're going for the long ball here.
No.
Let's take Luke Kennard. No, it's very different with Troy Weaver and Steve Yzerman. Excited for that. I'll tell you what, we'll go to break. When we get back, we're going to talk more about these alternate helmets. And I'm going to show you guys the video, the picture, and we'll go around the room and get everyone's thoughts on it. But before we do that, Sam Flannel, can you tell us about our friends over at Randy Wise?
Absolutely, I can. And how would you like to see famous athletes like my coach, Jim Harbaugh, the great Darren McCarty, and Braylon Edwards play golf with average Joes? Thanks to Randy Wise Automotive and Woodward Sports, you will be able to do just that. It's the Randy Wise Celebrity Golf Tour. Make the wise choice and pay attention to Woodward Sports for more information soon.
Big Boy Strawberry Fest has officially arrived, and we're here to show you the very best flavors of the season. Satisfy your sweet tooth with our deep-fried vanilla Oreos, strawberry hot fudge cake, and a slice of our classic strawberry pie. But that's not all. Cool off on a refreshing summer splash salad, or savor the flavors of our chicken Caesar wrap and strawberry bacon chicken wrap. And for breakfast lovers, don't miss out on our strawberry hotcakes or our mouth-watering red velvet waffle. Strawberry Fest is something for everyone. Celebrate the sweet season with us at Big Boy.
All of Detroit's sports teams live on Woodward. All of Detroit's sports coverage lives on Woodward Sports. Driving the best in Detroit sports coverage.
We're back here in the Morning Woodward Show, Woodward Sports Network. Jeff Iafrate, Sam Flannel, JB, and Alex Westfall in the TD booth. Guys, by the way, before we get to the new alternate helmets, because we're going to spend some time on that, and I'm sure we'll have plenty of interesting conversations. What the hell is happening out in the Atlantic? Did you guys hear about this? I know the heavyweights talked about this yesterday, but I at least had to mention it because it's mind-blowing to me that billionaires, for fun, spend a lot of money to go on very dangerous trips because normal trips just won't do. Normal trips to Bora Bora in Hawaii just won't do.
Yeah.
Let's go on a submarine that's controlled by a gaming controller to the Titanic wreck, shall we? And now, as much as, the company's called Ocean Gate Expeditions, and I think it's 5 people. Yes, 5 people on board of this missing Titanic tourist submarine, and it's just somewhere in the depths of the Atlantic Ocean, when nobody can find this thing. And I think last night it was being reported that there was noises they were picking up. But they still can't find this submarine, and they don't have much air left. Like, how terrifying is that scenario? But number 2, why the hell would anybody want to do that?
Well, to answer the first question, it's the single most terrifying thing that I could potentially think of, being stranded at the bottom of the ocean with a submarine that's losing air and knowing that you're going to drown eventually. That, you cannot get any more terrifying than that. As with regards to billionaires making these big excursions, I mean, I understand the idea of seeing where the Titanic wrecked. That is unbelievable. I would love to go do that, and exploring an area of the ocean which... A lot of the ocean, more than you would think, has been unexplored by humans in general. So the idea of doing that is amazing if you have the means. Maybe when you're a billionaire, you don't have enough life challenges, so you have to do things like that. You want to, I don't know. But at the end of the day, if there is any risk of me dying in a submarine at the bottom of the freaking ocean with nobody there to save me, that is literally my worst fear. I would never do that.
I mean, you can't even, dude. You can't just go to Turks and Caicos with the family. Like, what are we doing here?
Right.
Like, JB, is it not good enough? Like, if you have that much money, and shout out to Funky, by the way, in the chat, he put $250K a person. So if that's the confirmed amount, that's even more ridiculous.
That is a confirmed amount, too.
Okay, you're paying $250,000 to go on a very risky expedition to damn near the bottom of where you can see and where humans have been. I know they had the little chart, and it was like the Titanic ship, the wreck, and then right under it was unexplored territory. So you're right on the border of, like, you're gone, never coming back, see you later. Why the hell would anybody want to do that, JB? For $250K, you're paying $250K to essentially go die or have a chance of dying.
1, because you have the money for it, and 2, because you want to explore the Titanic. You want to see what someone else didn't find, which I think is ridiculous. So that is why right now, that's why the ghosts of the Titanic have them. I think it was reported last night that they have 24 to 48 hours worth of oxygen left in whatever this little tank is. So it's like, if you don't find them soon, you got to think the worst now. And on top of that, no one brought a cell phone. No one brought a cell phone to try and call somebody.
What the hell, man? Rich people, I don't understand. And again, $250K is probably nothing to these billionaires. But regardless, for $250,000, there are so many things you can do traveling wise.
Yeah.
But you choose to go down and see the Titanic in a small minivan-sized submarine, squished in there with 4 other people, including yourself. And you have to. I read the report. You have to take off their shoes. It's so small in there, and you're going to dangerous depths, Sam.
Dangerous depths.
Hey, maybe I'm the crazy one, but hell no, I'm not doing that. Even if you paid me $250,000, I would think about it. But to spend it and do it? Hell no.
Well, JB, you mentioned something that I thought was kind of funny. If you have that kind of money, you have the luxury to be able to take trips and risk your life like that.
It's literally FU money.
It is FU money, and normal people like us in this room, we just want to take a normal vacation in which we can have fun and not risk dying. There's no possible chance in hell that I will even have the money in my lifetime to go visit the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. So I actually appreciate the smaller things in life, like, I don't know, taking a trip overseas or something like that, or me and my wife eventually going to go on a big honeymoon. Those are the things that I aspire towards, not exploring the Titanic. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, I mean, what about the Grand Canyon?
The Grand Canyon, that's a great place. The Grand Canyon's awesome.
Go be a normal human being. Go, and if you're rich, go to better quality locations. Go to, where other rich people go to. Apparently, this is the new thing: touring space and going on expeditions to the Titanic, or the wreck of the Titanic. I mean, this is ridiculous.
I'm sure the Hamptons or Martha's Vineyard or something like that is nice. Wine country.
It's got to be the most stupidest thing I've ever heard. And again, I'm praying for those people, by the way, because it's scary. Absolutely. That's one of the most, if you think of nightmare situations for anybody, a nightmare situation would be in a minivan-sized submarine, cold, lonely, it's quiet, and you're with 4 other rich people that are probably complaining, because I'm assuming they're all complaining for some reason. And the more they're complaining, the less oxygen they have. So it's a terrible situation. Hopefully they can find the hopefully survivors, and they're not deceased. But it is a terrible situation. And the more I read about it, I was so intrigued by it, because I couldn't even fathom a situation where at least anybody I would know would do that, but I also don't know anybody who's a billionaire.
No,
so,
and that's the key.
Maybe that's different. You get so damn bored when you spend your money all the time. They're like, hey, let's just go risk our lives for $250,000. Sound great?
People need challenges in life, I'd suppose, and if you have that kind of FU money, maybe you don't have enough challenges. But don't take that kind of a challenge. You're basically on a death wish at that point.
And Steve-O says, Jeff, how long? Yeah.
Get some help.
You heard Michael Jordan. Stop it, get some help, rich people. Steve-O Baby says, Jeff, how long could you handle being in the Shark Tank, or the tank, with Sam Flannel if you guys were in a tank and you wanted to see the Titanic? Well, Sam, it depends, because it holds 5. So if it's just me and Sam, maybe a little more bearable because we have more room. But if it's me, Sam, and 3 other people, no, I'm not doing that.
It would depend.
There's no way.
It would depend on the subject matter to how long we would. I mean, we might all strangle each other first if we bring up something. I mean, maybe not me and you, because I think you're very respectful and we can argue respectfully. But there are some people. Imagine being in that enclosed of a space. I'm trying to think of the people here that have driven me the most crazy. Maybe Neil Rule, Easy, Stick.
Yeah.
Someone like Booner. I think we would all kill each other.
Well, I'm not gonna lie. I would definitely bring up Ben Wallace down there in the depths of the ocean. I would say something. I'd say, Sam, you still think he's not a Hall of Famer? You want to change your opinion before we all die? Say it right now or forever hold your peace. And someone just donated to Dante for the $10. Appreciate that. He says, what is also stupid is some of the comments on Twitter who said, why not leave? And people are telling them they're 13,000 below sea level and they instantly die. Yeah, just open the door. Like, what? I mean, don't do that. I don't know who thinks it's that easy. Just open the door and get out. Jesus, man. Apparently poor people shouldn't even go to the Titanic either, because rich people are stupid and poor people are sometimes, if they're thinking like that, just get out the freaking submarine. Everyone's screwed. Bottom line, don't get in a submarine and go to the freaking Titanic wreck. It's just, I don't know how you can even picture that and there's a good ending.
No.
You're like, that was fun. No. No.
It's probably because they watch too many Disney movies. That's why they're going down there to look for a treasure. That's what it is.
Hey,
this is not a Disney movie.
My bad.
Stop it.
Yeah,
Stop it.
Yeah, no, this is real life. You're done. This ain't the simulation. This isn't VR. This is real life. And in what 13,000 feet. I wanted to bring it up because I couldn't believe it, and I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on it. Hopefully we get updates that they're okay, but regardless, you learned a valuable lesson today, rich people, if you're watching this. Don't do things. Don't do stuff like that. Just don't do it. Why you got to do it? Keep $250,000 and go be a normal human being and go on normal vacations. Why are you going on vacations like this? Okay, I'm good now. Just had to clear that up.
Yes, Luke.
Lions alternate helmets.
Yeah.
What a transition. Okay, speaking of something I'd rather do than go visit the depths of the ocean to see the Titanic wreck, I'm curious what the new alternate helmets look like. And Alex, do you have the graphic? If you could throw it up quickly. Look at this. So this was the teaser, and it's interesting. Very interesting color schemes, just say the least. And do you have the video as well? If we could play the video to get more clarity, because this will give away a little more. See, you know what that tells me? Some color waves are going to be similar. Maybe a gray helmet, potentially, or gray face mask. Broder, what do you think? When you saw that video yesterday, what went to your mind? You cover the Lions.
I think
you got the inside scoop on this. You have to.
Yeah, they definitely got to match that car in some way. Yes. I know that these alternate helmets can only be worn with their alternate uniforms, which are their gray the gray uniforms, gray shirt, gray pants. So it'll be interesting to see what color scheme they use.
I see a lot of chrome domes in the chat. Chrome domes. Booner says blue and silver stripe. I honestly just need something new. I don't care what it is, and I honestly like the concept. If it is the concept people are talking about, which is a chrome or silver helmet or just blue and silver, I'm cool with that. I think the Lions, it's about time we need new alternate helmets.
Am I missing something? So when I see that video, I kind of think, and what is that a teaser for? Is that just going to be their color scheme? To me, it doesn't really tease a helmet style to me. I'm one of those people who doesn't take a ton of stock into what their uniform looks like, what their helmet looks like. I suppose if you want to change some bad juju of a franchise that has been morbid for their entire existence, but is obviously on the upswing now, I definitely understand that. So is that what it is? It just, the color scheme, blue, silver, is that what that video is supposed to tease us?
Well, part of it is, and this is why I'm always advocating for uniform changes and modernizing, or just continuing to make the uniforms better and just get newer, fresher, and more interesting uniforms. Deion Sanders once said, if you feel good, or if you look good, you feel good. If you feel good, you play good. If you play good, they pay good. So that's factual information. Deion Sanders said that. I didn't say it. One of arguably the greatest player of all time said it, a defensive player. So I love whenever there's new concepts for uniforms, and especially with the video they released. I think the color scheme they used on that specific Mustang, these uniforms, or at least the alternate helmets, they're going to be sick, man. I can't wait for it.
I have to give Chuck Brewer his props for this one, because he is absolutely right, and he knows me so well. Chuck Brewer comments, a video doesn't help Sam. There are no stats included. You know what? You got me there, man. There's nothing tangibly I can look at as to what colors help you win the most by what numbers. So I'm just perplexed. I'm like, colors, uniforms, I can't tangibly say anything about that, because apparently I have no emotion and I don't have any emotional attachments to these teams, which is not true, by the way, or else I wouldn't be here by now. But Chuck, I know we've had our battles in the chat, but that was a good one. I got to give you your props.
Yeah, well, you couldn't break down essentially why these uniforms shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame or don't qualify. Yeah. So it's a different conversation, but still, nonetheless, feel free to get your guys' predictions in the chat. I know you guys kind of did it already, but your predictions for these uniforms and what they're going to look like. In my personally, I already kind of went through it. I've been waiting for something new, a new concept, and the Lions have been teasing that, and they kind of already told us last season that new things would be on the horizon. And now with this design, with that color scheme, I'm excited. It comes out today. I don't think they'll release it during the show, but if they do, we'll get you guys the update. We'll go to break. When we get back, Brandon Dent, a.k.a. Detroit Kool-Aid, is going to join us to talk about the Troy Weaver press conference and a little bit of that Pistons draft. And then we got a ton of Lions talk later in the show. But before we do that, I got to tell you about our friends at Dispo. Because, again, if you feel like you got to go to the depths of the Atlantic, you're smoking something. and I got Dispo to help you out. Elevate your senses. Embrace the harmony of nature at Dispo Dispensary. Whether you're a seasoned connoisseur or new on your plant life journey, come check out Dispo Dispensary. They take care of me every single time, and they'll be down at their Hazel Park location Friday. You can join the heavyweights and Ermanni and Edwards. Check it out, their Hazel Park location or any of the locations listed. Dispo, your local plug.
Love Woodward Sports? Love wearing clothes? Then you should be wearing Woodward Sports clothes. Check out our full line of merch at woodwardsports.com. Just click on shop. We have all your favorite designs, like Dan Campbell kneecaps, Woodward golf, and of course, our own logoed out merchandise. Men, women, infants, kids, all love Woodward Sports. Impress your friends. Impress your boss. Impress your dog. Buy Woodward Sports merch today.
Introducing the Planet Fitness Guide to getting that post-workout glow. Step 1. What's your why? More epic energy? Better sleep? Blow off steam? Step 2. Join Planet Fitness for just $10 a month and get moving in our clean and spacious clubs. Step 3. Bask in that post-workout glow. Join Planet Fitness today for just $10 a month.
Join today at any of the 50-plus Detroit area locations.
Woodward Avenue, the first paved road in America. Woodward Sports, the first sports network born in Detroit and made for Detroit.
Thanks for sticking with us on this beautiful Wednesday morning. It's the Morning Woodward Show here on Woodward Sports Network. Jeff Iafrate, Sam Flannel as usual, and JB and Alex and Lucas are joining us as well. The crew's all here, but we have a very special guest today, my good friend Brandon Dent, a.k.a. Detroit Kool-Aid, our Pistons beat reporter for Woodward Sports. And he's done a great job. Yesterday was Troy Weaver's press conference, and he said a lot of interesting things, and we got to get my good friend Brandon Dent's opinion on it. Brandon, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing good. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing great.
I'm good,
I think, trying to process everything. You had Steve Yzerman's press conference. You had Troy Weaver's press conference. You were there. And again, no players were there this time. The entire team was not also there. So there you go. But regardless, the media was. And you guys had an opportunity to speak to Troy Weaver before the draft. And he did kind of clear up a lot of things we were already wondering beforehand. And one of the biggest things, I guess the biggest arguments that I find myself getting into is the best player available versus the fit argument. And I want to ask you about that first, and we'll get to just some of the takeaways from his press conference.
Yeah.
But when you think about fit versus BPA, and I completely understand the thought process behind both. I understand BPA, you won 17 games, even though, quite frankly, the 17 games I think is missing a lot of context. It's not just 17 games with an entire healthy lineup. Because if that was the case, then yeah, you don't have a good team at all. You don't have a relevant team. But as much as they faced, the amount of different lineups they had, Cade being out, yes, they won 17 games, but you can argue it's still a bright future with Cade and Jaden Ivey. So I lean more on fit, but fit with still high upside. That's how I look at it. Taylor Hendricks to me is a good fit, but also there's plenty of room for him to grow. He's 19 years old. So again, I get both arguments from your perspective. You talked to Troy Weaver, you asked him questions. What are your thoughts on his response to that question? Basically the response of, hey, I'm not bunting. We're going for the long ball here. What was your takeaway?
Look, I loved everything that Troy was saying yesterday because I think it showed that he's consistent. It showed that he's going to continue to be aggressive. And we consistently go back and forth between this aspect of fit versus best player available. And I think with Troy, it's always about what's the best asset available. So if this player is somebody that's on your squad, you expect this player to be somebody that you can either depend on the roster. And we said this with Jeremy Grant, or if you're going to trade him, then it's a player that's going to get you a haul, just like Jeremy Grant got back, like the Jalen Duren do.
Yep.
So, I don't know. Sometimes, because it would be nice to have like a guy like a Taylor Hendricks or a Brandon Miller or somebody like that you could have a shot at to slot in at that wing. Mm-hmm. It seems almost perfect. But when I hear Troy speak, if there's a guy there that he believes can reach a star potential, that's over, the guy that maybe is the better fit, I feel like he's going to go with the star potential and give himself the best opportunity at assets.
And another thing, you talk about Troy and I guess the philosophy of trading that fifth overall pick, and I don't think it's going to happen. I think my instincts would at least let me know they'll stay there at 5, or if they move back, they move back. What are your, I guess, early predictions on it? What scenario do you see? Do you see a more likely scenario of Troy staying put at 5, or do you think a trade back and maybe getting 2 first-round picks and getting 2 chances to swing early on, at least in the lottery, are possible? What are your thoughts?
That's where it gets interesting. When you're talking about best fit available, if he actually does that, then I don't think he's going to stay put at number 5. Mm-hmm. And everything that he continued to talk about, to me, it resonates that he's going to wind up either getting multiple first-round picks one way or the other, whether he's trading at 31st and some other assets to move up back into the first round, or whether he's trading at number 5 to maybe a team like Utah and maybe picking up a couple more shots in this first-round draft pick, which is something I want him to do. Listen, the way that, and I got the opportunity to ask him this question, man, about the way he's been able to pluck talent, whether it's been first round or second round, guys like Sadiq Bey, Isaiah Stewart, guys like Isaiah Livers, and then even Jalen Duren at number 13. Like, the type of talent he is, to be able to understand, you got to get him. And he said he was high on his draft board. Troy Weaver's ability to assess and evaluate players, and he spoke on it, being on the scene, being at the AAU camps, being at the all of the different Team USA events and things of that nature.
Right.
He kind of knows who these players are. He does. And so, I don't know, man. I feel like this draft is going to get crazy after the number 2 pick, man. And I think that Troy is going to be somebody uniquely involved in it.
Kool-Aid, I have to ask, because despite what people think in the chat, I definitely know that I'm not an expert on all things, and Brandon, I really respect your opinion when it comes to NBA basketball, particularly the Pistons. So at the number 5 overall pick, if the Pistons keep the pick and make it, is there anybody that you like at that option more than others?
Man, that's a really good question. I've been like 100% all in on Jarris Walker. I liked his ability to be this kind of two-way player. I liked his kind of 3-4 fit rather than more like a Stewart 4-5. I liked his ability to be able to kind of like he didn't get the opportunity to fully show his capabilities at Houston, but I liked his ability to handle. I liked his ability to be able to play make. And he looked like a player that could complement Cade and Ivy and then feel, as it relates to best fit, be able to kind of play that role on the wing for us. And I liked it, somebody that will probably come in with low ego, but I hear that the motor is like 100%. It's there. So I like Jarris Walker, but Jeff put me on to Taylor Hendricks.
Let's go.
And I was like, you know what? He's a little bit taller. I like kind of what he brings to the table. I do. From both ends of the court. I'm looking for somebody that can impact this team as a two-way player. And that's where, and I don't know if it's controversial or not, but that's where I've kind of cooled off on Cam Whitmore. He was somebody that was a little bit higher on the draft board for me, but now it's guys like Jarris Walker, Taylor Hendricks, and if you're talking about that home run hit, then I think you have to include Asar Thompson, because it's looking like the Pistons are going to have their pick of a lot of different players between 5 and 10.
Yeah, that quote by Troy, basically the whole "I don't bunt, I only hit long balls," that applies at least to me to Asar Thompson. At least in my opinion. I think Amon's going to be gone by then. I would love Amon, but Asar is it sounds like that's the more boom or bust prospect. The Thompson twins, guys that have tons of potential, but also there's that uncertainty, especially with the shooting form, the things like that, playing off ball. Asar actually played off ball his whole basketball career to Amon, so there's already that in place. I wouldn't mind Asar at all. I know the Hendricks thing for me is, part of it is, and I don't agree with trading back to take the guy you want, because again, if you stay at 5, you get your pick of the litter. You get your option. If you like Jarris, you can take him. If you like Hendricks, you can take him. But if you trade back, you lose control of the board, which I don't like for somebody like Troy and Brad and other GMs that can identify talent. I hate losing control of the board, but I also understand the philosophy if you're getting more assets. I want to bring up one of the quotes that Troy made, and I don't think Brandon Miller will be there. I think he'll be gone. It's already been reported Charlotte loves him. Speaking of fit, Charlotte loves him as a fit with LaMelo Ball over Scoot, who, again, drafting number 2, you're passing on Scoot Henderson for Brandon Miller. Like, can we talk about that for a second? And also the second part of it is, Troy said that the basketball character matters. We don't want anybody coming in and disrupting the locker room. Is that also kind of pointed at Brandon Miller if he falls? Because I don't see a scenario. Because, again, it's kind of like the Lions with Jalen Carter. Like, I love Jalen Carter. I love Brandon Miller. I don't know why I keep liking guys with pass, but it is what it is. I got problems. I do. I'll admit it. But if there is a scenario where he's there at 5, there's no way in hell that I would assume Troy would take him. I just don't. I don't with his baggage he's coming in with.
That one is a tricky one because it's not necessarily him that's the person that's done something. You know, I think all these guys in the NBA, like all of us, man, people have made some mistakes. People have had some ups and some downs. And the NBA has been a league of second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth chances. So the guys that are on the roster, they're not squeaky clean. They're not going to be, the church mices. They're just not.
Right.
It just is what it is. But he's looking for people who understand the opportunity that they are getting. And Brandon Miller strikes me as somebody who's going to understand that opportunity. When you get into the NBA, the type of pedigree he seems like he comes from, I believe that he's going to take full advantage of it. And that's why Troy said it gets pretty dicey after number 1. That was a quote that caught my ears because those GMs are going to know what's going on. They're going to be talking to other GMs. They're going to know the types of deals that may be going down or may be talked about. And with him saying that it may get dicey after number 1, and then you got Charlotte coming out and saying, we're going to take Brandon Miller number 2, does Portland really take Scoot Henderson number 3? See, that's what I'm saying. That is going to get really crazy. Are teams really jumping up to say Scoot Henderson is a superstar?
Right.
Because if he's not, then does he slip to 4? And then what? You see what I'm saying? Like, this draft could get crazy quickly. And I guess this is why we've been hearing things like Amin could go as high as number 3. It seems like he would fit best with Portland there, but I feel like with Charlotte announcing Brandon Miller at number 2 and Scoot, I don't know if he's necessarily a fit with Portland. This draft is about to get wild.
So, Brandon, by definition of wild, could it be wild enough that either Scoot Henderson or Brandon Miller fall to number 5? Do you think there's any shot in any way, shape, or form?
That's what I've been pondering since I kind of saw that tweet go out, and it's interesting. If it does, then man, the Pistons are sitting kind of in this ultimate seat of power. Like the best case scenarios, like I thought they had last season. We were all sitting here saying there's no way that Ivy falls to number 5, and we needed a team to do something like that. We kept saying we need the Kings to king. We kept saying that, and I think that they did. I really believe that they did, and it gave Troy Weaver the opportunity to take a guy in Jaden Ivey that even then a lot of people had questions about. But early on we identified, well, what was he asked to do? Right. What situations and opportunities did he have to be able to present the type of player that we actually saw him turn out to be? And Troy Weaver identified it. Since the Killian Hayes kind of Tyrese Halliburton thing, where you guys had to think about it, initially they took Killian Hayes because of where he was rated, and it was kind of this best fit available, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes I feel like, was that even a Troy Weaver pick? Because since that, it's been a completely different way that he's drafted, and it's been what he said back to his kind of DC roots when he was on the scene with these players. Right. Now I'm seeing him going after the guys that he knows kind of on this college circuit, these guys that he has connections to, and that's why I think the Thompson twins are someone to look at. He really, 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 from everything that I have heard, liked Kevin Ollie. So he's going to have some type of information on those guys as well and understand if they are ready for the next step or not. I hope, for the sake of potential, and I don't know if you all believe like I do, I feel like the home run pick is Asar Thompson if he's sitting there at number 5.
Yeah. And that definitely applies to what the language Troy used for swing for the fences. That's a prospect I think you could argue that. The last question I have for you, and Weaver kind of spoke on the CBA as well, and again, avoiding the second apron, because that's a big thing. The Suns basically just said, F it, and Matt Ishbia is like, let's go, which I respect, but Weaver understands also when you have teams that are going to do that, there's going to be available players that they're going to have to get rid of. It's just how it works. And if they get a good enough offer for DeAndre Ayton, they're willing to trade him, the Suns. So not saying they should get DeAndre Ayton, but in general, he spoke on that. And he said, quote, there's some thought there. Teams will really start looking at the roster comp and how it plays out with their contract. It's definitely some work and thought to make sure we're ready. So I think that just kind of clarifies what we already assumed, which the Pistons with Monty Williams, they want to win sooner than later. I think that's very fair, even though they gave him a long-term deal. Yeah. What do you think the mindset is for Troy Weaver approaching this draft with the number 5 pick? Is it, hey, we're optimistic, we'll take whoever's at 5 and we'll roll with it? Or you think there's more pressure to get a deal done to go trade for a proven player so we could speed up this process for Monty Williams? Which side do you think they're leaning more so on?
Man, Troy has shown that he can do it all, right? Like last year, he did both with Alec Burks and Jalen Duren in one trade. So, with Troy Weaver, I believe he's going to come out and have himself available to do everything, which honestly, he's afforded himself the luxury to take a player at number 5 and not have to sell out and say, I have to get a veteran guy because of the other part of that quote. It's interesting you brought that up because that's what I had queued up here. Him talking about the CBA, he said there could be some vulnerable situations we could take advantage of, and we are prepared to. So he doesn't necessarily have to rest on his laurels with that draft pick. He can go out there with the $30 million that they have. And we already hear of some players that are a little bit disgruntled, and he's going to be in prime position to be able to make something happen with that cap space as well as some of the assets that they have if they have to. If they have to get another draft pick to make something work, they have guys on this roster that they can move for that purpose. So I do, the way he was talking, man, it seems like that might be definitely a part of their strategy. Whether it's draft night or not, I definitely know as they move into free agency, deeper into free agency and after the draft, I wouldn't be surprised if the Pistons went on ahead and made one of those trades. They've done it with Jeremy Grant. They did it with Bojan Bogdanovic. And now you're going to have more teams probably looking to, like you said, find themselves on the other side of this penalty coming if they're over the apron. Yeah. So I think the Pistons are going to be benefiters here.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Well, appreciate you for joining us, Brandon. You do a great job, man. Always a pro. Detroit Kool-Aid, Brandon Dent, beat reporter for Woodward Sports for the Detroit Pistons. Stay tuned, Woodward Pistons and Kool-Aid. We'll have a big day tomorrow as well, draft day. So stay tuned for that. We'll have a live show for everybody, so stick around for that. But before we do, we talk about this roster needing a haircut, the Pistons roster. I need a haircut, Sam. Where can I go?
I mean, if you need a haircut, I think I need a haircut as well. You go to Lady Jane's, of course, because Lady Jane's is the best place to get haircuts. They have amazing stylists, and every time I go in there, they have me looking this good every single time. And if that isn't an endorsement, I don't know what is. And every stylist does a wonderful job. And how would you like to win not one, but 2 vehicles of your choice? One for you and one for your wife, your girlfriend, or your best bud. Get to Lady Jane's today for an award-winning haircut and automatically enter for your chance to win, courtesy of Les Stanford Buick GMC of Ferndale. Lady Jane's open 7 days a week. Walk in anytime. It's wicked awesome.
The sports marketing agency would not be who we are without great community partners like Higuera Health and Carol Zaniga.
It's an awesome opportunity to partner with your organization. Higuera Health is a comprehensive behavioral health organization. We serve children through older adults with mental health, substance use, and developmental disabilities across Western Wayne counties, and really excited to now be in downriver communities as well. Give us a call at 734-458-4601.
You have an opinion? Make sure it's seen and heard. Corner, jumper, tweet us, hop on the YouTube chat, slide in the DMS at Woodward Sports on all social media.
We're back here on the Morning Woodward Show, woodwardsports.com. Thanks for sticking with us. It's almost the second hour of the show. Jeff Iafrate, Sam Flannel, JB, Lucas Klotz, all here as usual. And guys, if you haven't heard this already, and again, I don't know if I don't really watch Good Morning Football that much, that often. I'm too busy, but I did see something floating around social media with their different tier list, their tiers in the NFL. And I know at first you're thinking, well, where could the Lions be? Like, it's a tier list, right? And I'm sure there's, there's the Kansas City Chiefs, there's the top of the top, at the very top, the best of the best. The Lions got to be somewhere in that vicinity. Maybe not with the Chiefs, but they got to be somewhere, right? You got the graphic? Can we check this out? So this is the NFC tier list according to Good Morning Football. And as you can see, if you're listening, I'll just read them off for you. In tier 1, meaning I'm assuming Super Bowl contenders, you have the Philadelphia Eagles and the San Francisco 49ers. Before we move on, anybody have an issue with that?
Absolutely not.
No?
No,
JB,
you have to have that.
We're pretty. Lucas? Okay, so we're fair so far, and I agree. I think Philly and San Francisco, 2 teams that you could solidly say, yeah, they're Super Bowl contenders. Tier 2. Now, this is where it gets interesting, and I don't know if this list was made 6 months ago or what, but the Minnesota Vikings are in tier 2. They have the Dallas Cowboys, the Minnesota Vikings, the Seattle Seahawks, in the New York Giants. Put the camera on me. Are you kidding? The New York Giants? Are you joking? The Minnesota Vikings? You know what the Lions did to both those teams last year towards the end of the season? Whooped both of their asses. Now, this is the problem I have, too. Minnesota got worse. They lost, 8 starters? And they didn't even replace all of them, according to talent. And then the New York Giants? Are you joking? Daniel Jones? What did he throw, 15 touchdown passes last season?
15 touchdown passes.
And they don't even have a contract for Saquon Barkley locked up, and you draft Jalen Hyatt, and now they're in Tier 2 of the NFL, or in the NFC, excuse me. Hell no. Hell no. Like, this list does not make any sense to me, by the way. The Giants, I think, will be better. Could be better. Obviously, Brian Daboll's first season there. A lot of the groundwork was laid out. They won 9 games. Great first year. You think they're going to win 11, 12 games this year, Sam?
I do not.
You think they're going to win 10 games? Because I'm just trying to ask you, do you think the Giants can improve on what they did last season?
I don't see it.
See, the fact that you're even hesitant to say they'll get better this season and win 10 games, that would be better. They won 9 last season.
Yeah.
That's scary. Put up the list. Let's go through the other players on, the other teams on this list, and I just want to go through them. Dallas, you could see them winning, again, like Dallas always does, 11, 12 games. You can see that scenario.
Dallas was the one where I don't have any problem with them being projected over the Detroit Lions. They're returning 8 Pro Bowlers from last season. They acquired Stephon Gilmore and Brandon Cooks in the offseason. And I just think the power of a guy like Micah Parsons, I think he's one of the top 5 overall football players in the NFL. And he's going to take that step into being the best edge rusher in the NFL this year. So the Dallas Cowboys, despite them having a history of getting into the playoffs and not doing anything, I think they're going to be good. I think there's actually a chance, although I'm not calling for it, that they challenge for the Eagles in this division, in the NFC East. So I don't hate that one. The Cowboys I'm cool with.
Yeah, and again, like Seattle and the Cowboys, I don't have too much of an issue with. I don't. Minnesota and the Giants, I absolutely have an issue with.
The Minnesota Vikings, I cannot say enough horrible things about them right now. Do I have to repeat it again? Last season, they were the most fraudulent 13-4 team in NFL history. They were a ridiculous 11-0 in one-score games, which will never happen again in the history of life. They had a negative scoring differential on the season, which is unheard of for a 13-4 season, a 13-4 team, and a worse scoring differential than the Detroit Lions. They had a worse turnover differential than the Detroit Lions. They had a worse statistical offense than the Detroit Lions and a worse statistical defense than the Detroit Lions. And that is not all. They lost Dalvin Cook in the offseason, 4 straight 1,000-yard seasons, and replaced him with Alexander Mattison, who has never had a 500-yard rushing season. They lost Adam Thielen, which I think drafting Jordan Addison, that's fine. That might end up being an upgrade, at least with Adam Thielen being up there in age. They lost Za'Darius Smith, a 10-sack guy, and replaced him with half-sack Marcus Davenport. I get it. He's had some good years. He's had some good years, but last year he had a half a sack total, and it's not like he played 3 games or anything. I believe he played 14 or 15. I think it was 15. They lost Patrick Peterson, who is obviously a future Hall of Fame guy, but who is a little past his prime, but he still had 5 interceptions last year and played well. And they replaced him with Byron Murphy, who has 5 total interceptions in 4 seasons. They lost Dalvin Tomlinson, who I think is actually an underrated loss in the interior defensive line. They replaced him with Dean Lowry, which I also think is a downgrade. The Minnesota Vikings will win 5 games this season. I'm sick of these MFers. Get out of Tier 2. They are going to fall flat on their faces. I hate the Vikings.
So let me just get this question out there, because I think this will clear up a lot of questions of why the Vikings are higher than the Lions on this tier list. Sam, and I'll go to you because you're a smart guy.
Appreciate that.
Can you name me, other than tight end and wide receiver, what else do the Minnesota Vikings have better than the Lions?
They do have Christian Darrisaw on the offensive line. I think he's
But is that offensive line, that ain't better than the Lions?
No, I'm not saying
I'm talking as a unit.
No.
Any other unit besides their tight end group and their wide receiver? Because, again, Justin Jefferson's so good. I understand that. TJ Hockenson more proven than anybody we have. Besides that, can you name me any other position group?
No, I can't name one. And at the end of the season, you might even be talking about the Lions wide receiver core as overall better than the Vikings. I think Jordan Addison is going to be good. Obviously, Justin Jefferson is elite of elite, arguably the best wide receiver in the NFL. But still, I think the Lions wide receiver core has more depth. And maybe not this year, but in the upcoming years, does Sam Laporta ever pass TJ Hawkinson?
I just can't even pitch. Like, this is the problem I have, is what did the Vikings, and again, I have been defending the Vikings early on in the offseason after the season, last season ended, because I didn't know they'd go through all the changes they would go through. I figured, you know what, the Vikings will be competing again this year for the NFC North, and then they lost, 7-8 starters. They hired Brian Flores, which I think is a great hire, but your coaching can overcome so much loss of talent. They lost 8 starters, and again, yes, they drafted Jordan Addison. I like Jordan Addison. But that defense, they added some pieces in the secondary, but overall, you can't argue to me they're better than the Lions on paper. They just aren't. They aren't. I mean, even Jared Goff, I'll take him over Kirk Cousins. We can keep going. So that's my issue with this list. The New York Giants, I don't think we even have to spend much time on, because that's blasphemy. Like, that is blasphemy. The only, I guess, position group you could say easily off the top of my head would be running back. Saquon Barkley is clearly better than any back they have. The secondary, they got guys in the secondary. Their defensive line at defensive tackle, obviously.
Dexter Lawrence is a
But
stud.
I'm talking offensive line. You can go through it all. It's not that much better than the Lions. And if anything, the Lions take them in a lot of areas too. They're better than the Giants in some position groups.
Yeah, I think the Lions will be better than the Giants. I think the Giants made one of the more underrated additions in Darren Waller at the tight end position to finally give Daniel Jones a number 1 style weapon. But still, I don't think the New York Giants finish any higher than 3rd in the NFC East and win any more than 9 games. Although, as you already probably know by my rant earlier, the Vikings being in Tier 2, I think, is far more egregious than even the Giants. I cannot wait to watch them win 5 or 6 games this year, because I'm so tired of all the Vikings truthers around here. They lost so much off of the most fraudulent team in NFL history. Ooh. And they showed it in the playoffs by giving up the coming out party to Daniel Jones. As Jeff, you said it before, the Vikings got Daniel Jones paid. Full stop. That's it. That's all.
They did. They absolutely did. And my biggest issue with this in general, I do want to get to Lucas and JB on this, but before I hand it off to you guys, I hate the fact that you have to prove something before you get there. Like, the Lions have to make the playoffs to get into these tier lists. Honestly, a bimbo could look at the Lions and realize they're better than tier 3. Like, a bimbo could. Like, and this is the problem I have. Well, they have to win their division. They have to win a playoff game. Like, dude, the Lions last season almost snuck in, but regardless, they were good enough to be in the playoffs. This season, we expect them to be far better. They're favored to win their division. Did you know that the Lions are the most bet-on team in the NFC to win the NFC?
Yeah. And
at plus 800, they're the most bet-on team.
Especially given the odds. I don't blame that. That makes sense.
At plus 800, of course. So you're telling me a team that's the most bet on, that nationally has gotten the most recognition, that has done a ton in the offseason to improve, had a pretty damn good draft once again, is still hovering in the same tier they were last year because they have to prove it? Like, Lucas, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on this list? And tell me why it makes sense. Or
I'm
if it
mad
doesn't make
about
sense.
the Vikings and Giants. Don't get me wrong. I'm really mad. But the thing that aggravates me even more than both of these is the fact that they somehow think the Los Angeles Rams, if you want to disrespect the Lions and saying that the Vikings are better, I'm pissed off about it, but the Vikings won the division. So if you're going to stay on that train, that's fine. But the Los Angeles Rams in the same tier as the Detroit Lions is idiotic. What besides Cooper Kupp do the Rams actually have? Aaron Donald, I get it, but he's probably going to be very good because it's Aaron Donald, but it's not like he's prime Aaron Donald, and he might walk away after this year. So Aaron Donald's kind of a question mark.
Right.
What the fuck else do the Rams have? Then go to the Saints. It's the same type of thing. They just have a low floor and a low ceiling. It makes no sense. JB, I'm interested to see what you have to say about this because I am feeling disrespected by the Vikings, but way more disrespected with the Rams. Just put them on the same tier.
To be on the same tier, yeah, I definitely have to agree with you on that. But, dude, the Vikings and the Giants above us,
that's 2 middle fingers right to your face, Jay.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm getting tired of just, as you said, Jeff, everyone just doubting us constantly. Like, we have to win, as you said, a playoff game. We have to have a successful season for us to get some sort of respect. So as of right now, it's just like, you know what? Cool, fine. Put all the disrespect you want on the Lions as of right now. We'll just show up and prove it once
Right.
the season starts, and then you can change your opinion. Because I guarantee you, we will be in those 1 or 2 tiers.
Yeah, and that Rams play where they placed the Rams was egregious too. I didn't thank you
agree.
for mentioning that, Lucas, because I'm so wrapped up on the Vikings and the Giants that I didn't even realize that the Lions are in the same category as the Los Angeles Rams. And I know they won a Super Bowl only a couple years ago, but Matthew Stafford hasn't been able to stay healthy for a full season, at least recently. They lost a ton of players. And also, you look at their defense and everybody they're continuing to lose. They traded away Jalen Ramsey, Leonard Floyd left. Like, besides Aaron Donald, they're pretty bare boned. Like, they got some work to do.
They went into camp this year, or I should say they walked out of camp this year with 43 players on their roster. And think about, like, most teams at that point, they're way over what the limit is. This team literally is going and they drafted and have to bring in a whole nother half for training camp. They just signed Sony Michel, who they had 2 years ago and was off 2 blown knees. Yep. This team has no hope. The fact, I would put the Packers, who I can't stand, the Bears above them. Like, the Rams are going to be like a 4-win team this year. There's no way this isn't a tier 4 team.
The only thing that I can think of, and I don't agree with it necessarily, is maybe they're like a full healthy season of Stafford and Kupp again. And for the record, they were an elite combination in 2021.
Yes, they were.
Arguably responsible for the greatest statistical wide receiver season ever, which I think Cooper Kupp did have if you include playoffs. But here's this big hot take that I'm about to give you. Newsflash, your defense cannot lose Jalen Ramsey, Bobby Wagner, and Leonard Floyd and be better. That is impossible. Stop it.
I can't confirm that's going to be hard to do. And the Lions continue to get disrespect, but regardless, they're going to go out and prove it this year. At least we expect them to. And even last year, beating the Giants, should have beat the Minnesota Vikings twice.
Yeah.
That first game that they lost at Minnesota was heartbreaking.
That's another one.
So they could have easily swept the Vikings and or they already did beat the Giants. So 3-0 against the competition. Who cares, man? Move on. This season, they're going to prove all the doubters wrong. Can't wait to cover it. I'll tell you what, we'll go to break when we come back. I do want to bring up the Lions being the most bet-on team in the NFC and what that means moving forward. And we'll get into that and the specifics of that. But before we do, I got to tell you about our friends over at SMA, because the sports marketing agency helps spread awareness about mental health and substance abuse. Their new podcast, This is the S Word, helps fight the stigma about seeking help. If you or someone you know is struggling, head to thesportsma.com for more information.
Since the dawn of moving people, Chevrolet has led the way. The world of transportation is changing. At Feldman Chevrolet, we are leading the charge forward. With every electric vehicle, every mile traveled, one Feldman at a time. The company that puts more Chevys on Michigan roads is now the #1 name for Chevy electric vehicles.
We don't like to brag that we are the toughest sports network in Detroit, but we do have a guy named Darren McCarty on our side. Woodward Sports.
Welcome back to the Morning Woodward Show here on the Woodward Sports Network. Jeff Iafrate, per usual, the host, and we have Sam Flannel, my good friend, partner in crime, JB in the audio booth, and Lucas on the 1s and 2s. Appreciate you guys for sticking with us. If you're watching on our YouTube channel live, go ahead and hit the like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. And if you can't catch us live, it's all good. You can go back and re-listen to the podcast on any podcast app you have, whether it's Spotify or Apple. It doesn't matter. Leave a 5-star review for Sam and his wonderful flannels. And I can confirm, we've been doing this show now, and I see Sam every day. I can't, usually when someone wears something, you're like, oh yeah, he wore that before.
Yeah.
I don't remember the flannels you wear. Like, I feel like you say you have 18, you got to have at least 57.
Well, they come into the rotation from time to time. I mean, obviously, it is it's warm out, so I got rocking the short sleeve flannels.
You got different flannels too. You got you got no sleeve flannel.
I do have that one.
Short sleeve flannel, and then long sleeve flannel.
You know what? You know what, Lucas? I heard that.
I forgot about the nose sleeve one.
I think
you take them off each victim, don't you? You find them at they're like walking at 1 a.m. in the night, and you see them. You just slit their throat, take the flannel, and you're like, oh, new one to throw on the
Oh man, you got my MO down, down, Pat Lucas. But you know what? That one is saved for only special occasions. I wore that one after the Super Bowl when Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs won. I wore that one after the Golden State Warriors were eliminated by the Los Angeles Lakers. That was fun. And I believe I also wore it the day after. Well, I definitely did after Michigan went into Ohio State, went into Columbus, and beat Ohio State by 22 this past year. So hopefully more sleeveless flannel days, because I'm looking at a lot of wins, I think, for Michigan football and the Detroit Lions, and even the Kansas City Chiefs for that matter, which is my team B.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And listen, we both love us some Patrick Mahomes.
Yes.
Now, you're a little different. I find myself defended Mahomes last year in the Super Bowl and against Joe Burrow. People told me Joe Burrow was better than Patrick Mahomes, man.
Nonsense.
And we had to sit there and listen to that. I want to
He's
get to
second. He's second best.
Yeah,
That's
second.
Okay.
It's nothing against Joe, but come on, dude. We get to some of these comments people are talking about because people are chiming in. Jack says Flannel is a serial killer.
I've heard that one a few times. I mean,
right.
that's Lucas got my MO down, so I mean, he already knows.
Yeah, and again, you hear you are a Walmart Chiefs fan, Sam.
That's fair.
How do you respond to that from Jack? That's
well,
fair?
I'm actually not a Chiefs fan. I'm kind of every single person in this room and in this chat has a player that they follow and they like, and mine happens to be Patrick Mahomes. So it's not that I'm a Chiefs fan, but by following Patrick Mahomes' career, I've also become a big Andy Reid fan, a big Travis Kelce fan, a big Chris Jones fan, Frank Clark, guys like that. So it's more of a Patrick Mahomes thing.
But can you confirm this? R. Stone says Sam's flannels are like Dexter's blood slides. They're trophies.
Ooh.
By the way, Dexter, one of my favorite shows of all time.
You know what? I can't say that all of them are, but maybe a couple of them. I'm not like that prolific.
I don't want Sam to incriminate himself, so we're gonna move the conversation on here. John Ewing. I don't know how to pronounce his name exactly, but basically he covers data and PR for BetMGM. And John tweeted out 38% of bets are on the Lions plus 800 to win the NFC. He says Lions are the biggest liability to win the NFC at BetMGM. And when you first see that, 38% of bets, it says most, by the way, are on the Lions plus 800 to win the NFC. You know what that tells me? For the odds you're getting the Lions at, and you just saw it with Good Morning Football where they have the Lions. You can make an argument, I think you'd win that argument, that the Lions are you're getting your money's worth from where they're rated to what they could do in a weak NFC. Am I off or am I?
No, you're not off base at all. I would definitely consider throwing 10 or 20 bucks on the Detroit Lions because there is definitely a pathway, especially given the fact that I think we all agree the Detroit Lions are the massive favorite in the NFC North. I would argue that they are a bigger favorite in their respective division than even the Eagles are in theirs or the 49ers are in theirs. So I think the Detroit Lions, of all of the teams, believe it or not, might be the most likely to get a home playoff game or the most guaranteed to get a home playoff game.
Yeah, I would agree with that. You look at the division they're in. I mean, the Lions, the NFC North is bad. It is. Like Minnesota heading into a rebuild, Chicago with the question marks they have, and Green Bay with the question mark they have with Jordan Love. Big question mark.
Oh, yeah.
So, again, the Lions to me, and you know what this tells me, is, Lions fans every single year, it's our year. It's been a constant revolving cycle. Lions fans, absolutely. The last 20 plus years.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's kind of coming to fruition a little bit because you remember whether it was the Jim Caldwell years or the Jim Schwartz years, especially the year Jim Schwartz, they went 10-6 and then they kind of regressed after that. They never truly kept it going. With Dan, you went 9-8. Now we're expecting that progression, that 10, 11, 12 wins. Do you see a scenario, and I guess you could, but is it more likely than not that this thing does not backfire? Because I can see a scenario, especially Dan's record in September, the schedule they have to start the season. It's a brutal schedule. You start with Kansas City and Seattle. Because these bets are on the Lions to win the NFC. Do you see a scenario in which this entire thing backfires?
I don't see a snenario in which it backfires unless, of course, there's some catastrophic injuries to the most important players, which, knock on wood, I hope doesn't happen, obviously. And one of the other things is that despite the Lions having quite a few tough road games, especially opening the season at Kansas City, I think their home schedule has a lot of winnable games, and I expect them to go at worst 6-2 at home. I would say you should shoot for 7-1 or 8-0. But when you look at the Detroit Lions, one of the reasons why, despite not making the playoffs last year, they have so much hype surrounding them is that they have improved even from last year in so many ways. I did a little bit of a deep dive, and I'm working backwards here a bit. So when you look at players that they lost, key losses, Jeff Okudah, I mean, Jeff Okudah had some moments, but he also gave up a 97 passer rating when targeted, which is not good. It's not as bad as it sounds, but it's not good.
And who they replaced him with.
Which, yes, you're very smart, because I'm getting to that in a second. And DJ Chark, I mean, we all think DJ Chark was important, but when you really look at what he did last year, 11 games, 30 catches, 502 yards, 3 touchdowns. Not great, although he did step up at times. They lost their backfield, Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift, but despite what I said about David Montgomery, I still think replacing them with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs is an upgrade. And you mentioned Jeff Okudah. They replaced him, and I mean, they completely revamped their secondary with guys like Cam Sutton, CJ Gardner-Johnson, Emmanuel Mosley, and they also added Graham Glasgow, which I think could be an underrated signing, along with David Montgomery, who I already mentioned. And there are a few other guys who didn't do much last year but could be returning from injuries who were once good players. Tracy Walker, Vaitai, Levi Onwuzurike, and Jamison Williams. He's going to play, hopefully if he stays healthy, 11 full games.
Right.
And that could be huge. And then you look at the last 2 drafts. Amon-Ra St. Brown and Penei Sewell have another year of development, and I think they are already bona fide stars in this league. And then you look at, from that same draft, you got a starting defensive tackle in Aleem McNeil. And from last year's draft, 2022, Aiden Hutchinson, I think he takes a leap into stardom. James Houston, he could be a guy with more games played and more snaps, gets 10 sacks. It wouldn't shock me at all. Malcolm Rodriguez, he was all rookie last year, and he has another year of development, and I think he's going to have a good year. I think his production will be about the same because they added Jack Campbell, but still he's a valuable piece. And then Kirby Joseph, who last year forced 6 turnovers, and another year of development, and I think he went through some rookie growing pains early on in the year, and I think those are past him at this point. And that's not to mention guys who they drafted. I alluded to Jahmyr Gibbs earlier, Jack Campbell, Sam Laporta. You could argue that all of them are day one starters if you include a starting backfield as having two players, Jahmyr Gibbs along with David Montgomery. So they didn't get worse really anywhere. And except maybe DJ Chark, you might feel that loss a little bit at the beginning, but still, he wasn't as valuable as I think people think. And pretty much everywhere that they were weak, they made attempts to address it, particularly the secondary and the linebacking core and even the defensive line. They re-signed John Kaminsky. They drafted Broderick Martin. Josh Pascal, we might get him back healthy for a full season. The Okwara brothers, you don't know what you're going to get from them. Even Charles Harris. When I lay it out like that, doesn't it seem like the Lions kind of have an embarrassment of riches, or am I crazy?
No, you're not crazy. I think you nailed you hit the nail on the head when you described how much more improved, especially that secondary got in one offseason. Like what Brad's been doing, you notice a common theme here, offseason to offseason. He identifies a position group that needs upgrading, and just like that, it gets upgraded. Like it's very simple. Secondary was bad, secondary got better. And that's not including, and you kind of hit on it already, all the young players getting better.
Yes.
Like, we don't know the progression of Aiden. We don't know the progression or what Josh is going to look like his second year. Like, there's a lot of players, Levi coming back. We don't even know what we're getting out of Levi. Aleem McNeil and his transformation of his body, what that will mean to his game. There's a lot of things, even besides the offseason additions, the young players getting better. We don't know how much better they're going to get. Kirby Joseph.
Yes.
We know... at least with his potential, he'd be one of the best safeties easily in the league. So a lot of potential there. And that's why when you hear that the Lions will win the NFC, I'm not there yet. I'm not going to say they'll win the NFC. Of course, plus 800, maybe throw $10 on it. And 38% of the bets are on the Lions to win the NFC, which are the most bets. But I think this is more just the aura, the feeling of what the Lions are doing. If we're being realistic, San Francisco and the Eagles, to me, are just better. Now, the quarterback situation for the San Francisco 49ers is interesting, but if they get Brock Purdy back, I see those two teams as the teams to beat, and I think the Lions, as they should be, Good Morning Football, in a tier right below them. I don't know if I could put the Lions in that contend for the NFC, especially with Jamison out the first 6 weeks, which when they let Chark go, they didn't know he'd be gone the first 6 weeks. If he was back and ready to play game one, maybe I'd have a little more confidence. But there's a lot of question marks with those wide receivers. I need to get answered.
Yeah, and that's fair. I don't think that I'm not calling for the Lions to win the NFC at this point, but anything can happen once you get into the playoffs. I mean, you never know if the Eagles or the 49ers, you mentioned the 49ers with the quarterback situation. Look at what happened to them in the NFC Championship game. I mean, I know that that's an outlier of all outliers, but they don't really have that true starter. And Brock Purdy, you don't know how effective he's going to be at the beginning of the year or if he's going to play. And the Philadelphia Eagles, I'm not rooting for it, obviously, but they could suffer some injuries as well. They could get upset in the playoffs. You just never know. And the thing about the Detroit Lions, I didn't even mention it, and I'm actually shocked at myself because I think this is huge. The continuity on the coaching staff. Dan Campbell he's going into his third year. I think a lot of those rookie style growing pains as a coach, that might be a thing of the past. I think by the end of the season, Ben Johnson, there's a chance that he's looked at as the best offensive coordinator in the NFL and the number one coaching commodity going into the 2024 season. And then Aaron Glenn, a guy who at the beginning of the season, I was having some major questions about. But the fact that so many of the young guys like Aiden Hutchinson, Kirby, Malcolm Rodriguez, James Houston developed into better players under Aaron Glenn. And in the last 10 games of the season, the Lions defense only gave up about 20 points a game. I love their coaching staff and them having that coaching continuity. I love their talent. I agree that on paper they're not as good as Philadelphia or San Francisco, but on paper, the Detroit Lions should at the very least, and we all agree on this, win the NFC North comfortably. Not just win it, comfortably.
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, you talk about defenses, and this defense being much improved, I'll give you a defense that continues to improve, and that's Guardian Alarm because, guys, they got customized solutions from real experts, 24/7 professional monitoring and technology backed by people. Your safety and security deserves technology that's not only been proven to work, but by people that have been proven to care. Stick with us. We're going to go through and review Tyreek Hill and Bijan Robinson's top 5 running backs of all time. You're going to want to see this.
Introducing the Planet Fitness Guide to getting that post-workout glow. Step 1. What's your why? More epic energy? Better sleep? Blow off steam? Step 2. Join Planet Fitness for just $10 a month and get moving in our clean and spacious clubs. Step 3. Bask in that post-workout glow. Join Planet Fitness today for just $10 a month.
Join today at any of the 50-plus Detroit area locations.
Detroit sports teams live on Woodward. All of Detroit sports coverage lives on Woodward Sports. Driving the best in Detroit sports coverage.
We're cruising here on the Morning Woodward Show. Jeff Iafrate, Sam Flannel, JB and Lucas Klotz with us as usual. Thank you guys for sticking with us. And again, you could have been anywhere else, but you chose to be with us, with the Morning Woodward Show here on Woodward Sports Network. If you're watching via our YouTube channel, hit the like button, subscribe. And if you're watching on our website, check out all the latest news, articles, updates, show clips, and merchandise. And I don't know if you guys have seen this, the list that Tyreek Hill and Bijan Robinson both talked about and put out. Their top 5 running backs. And here we go. This is Dov Kleiman. He tweeted out, Dolphins wide receiver Tyreek Hill and Falcons running back Bijan Robinson gave their list for their top 5 running backs of all time. Now, this is Tyreek Hill's top 5 list. Number 1, Adrian Peterson. Okay. Number 2, Derrick Henry. Number 3, Barry Sanders. Number 4, Gal Sayers. 5, Eric Dickerson. And then Bijan's is number 1, Barry Sanders. There you go. Number 2, LaDainian Tomlinson. Number 3, Marshall Faulk. Number 4, Adrian Peterson. And number 5, Walter Payton. So the thing I guess sticks out to me is Tyreek Hill has Derrick Henry in his top 3. He has him 2 above Barry Sanders. And then the other one that was interesting to me is only one of them had Walter Payton. So, and then Adrian Peterson is 4 on Bijan's list, but number 1 on Tyreek Hill's list. Sam, I'll start with you first, because I know you have an interesting take, which I just want you to get out of the way real quick so we can hear what your thoughts are. But when you first see these 2 lists, what comes to your mind initially?
Well, my first thought, and I'll give that one first, is that the fact that neither of them have Jim Brown on their list is so egregious they shouldn't be allowed to talk about running backs again. All Jim Brown did in his career is lead the NFL in rushing yards in 8 of his 9 seasons, had over 12,000 rushing yards in 9 seasons while playing in 12-game seasons his first 4 and 14-game seasons in his last 5 years. Jim Brown was 100% dominant. He should be on all of the lists. But another thing, and this is where I differ from a lot of the people at Woodward Sports, probably everybody, is that what was it One of them had Walter Payton at number 5 on their list, and one of them didn't have Walter Payton at all. Was I reading that correctly, Lucas? Can you throw that back up there again?
And I don't see any Jim Brown on here.
Yes, no
Jim Brown, and Walter Payton only on one list.
And Tyreek Hill has a list with Derek freaking Henry and no Walter Payton or Jim Brown. And Bijan Robinson has a list with, Tyreek Hill does. Tyreek Hill has a list with Derrick Henry and Gale Sayers, who didn't even rush for 5,000 yards in his career, over Jim Brown and Walter Payton. That is absolutely egregious, because to me, and this is where I'm going to make a lot of you mad, but a lot of you already know this, the greatest running back in NFL history is not Barry Sanders. It is indeed Walter Payton. And Walter Payton is not only the greatest running back in NFL history, he is the greatest football player who has ever lived. Yes, that is absolutely right. Walter, let me read off some numbers, Lucas Klotz. Let me before, and I'll let you respond. I'll let all of you respond. All of you flame me if you want. Walter Payton was the 1977 NFL MVP. 5-time first-team All-Pro. He had over 16,000 rushing yards in his career and 4,000 receiving yards in his career and 125 total touchdowns. And that's not all. During most of the early part of his career, when he was statistically the most dominant, he played on some of the worst offenses in NFL history, in which he was the only weapon and they had no quarterback play. The best quarterback he ever played with was Jim McMahon, who himself was more of a game manager who was always getting hurt. But Walter Payton is the greatest all-around football player who has ever lived, and he is the best running back of all time. And the fact that only one of these people has him at number 5 on their lists, I think that's egregious. I know you guys disagree, and for the record, before I let you guys go, I do have Barry Sanders at number 2, but I got Walter Payton above him.
Yeah, well, this is where I'm struggling. And Lucas, I want you to kind of help me out here.
Okay.
So
we'll tackle it together.
Walter Payton played, 3-4 more years than Barry, roughly. Barry retired at 30. Can you answer this question? Why does Barry Sanders have more Pro Bowls, more All-Pros, and one more Offensive Player of the Year? AP, can you explain that?
Because he's a better running back. It's just that plain and simple. I mean, Walter Payton's a top 5 back of all time. I'm not going to not say that's not true. But the things that Barry Sanders did as a running back, we've never seen before since then even. And he did it in such a short time span. I mean, I'm looking at it right now. Total rushing yards. I mean, we just talked about it. 3 or 4 more seasons for Walter Payton. Walter Payton has 16,726, and Barry has 15,269. So arguably in a season and a half, Barry's breaking that and more, and he's probably picking up another award with it. So again, it's not just like saying that Walter Payton isn't one of the best ever, but I just think there's simply levels to it, and Barry's at the top of that.
Yeah, that's, I guess, the problem, too, because, again, both these lists, whether you don't think Barry's the best, I mean, I don't know what else to say. But if you don't agree, that's fine. But the fact that he had Derrick Henry above Barry Sanders
it's lunacy.
Can you at least agree there that's lunacy?
Bro, for the record, I have Barry Sanders as number 2 all time. The fact that Derrick Henry and Gale Sayers are above him on a list is so maddening that it's they shouldn't even. I know they're NFL football players, but they shouldn't even be allowed to talk about running backs anymore. Derrick Henry, and I love Derrick Henry, but he's had 8,000, a little over 8,000 rushing yards his entire career, and he looks to be on the downswing. And I know I still think he's got some good years ahead of him, but I don't think he's ever going to get back to prime 2,000-yard Derrick Henry. And Gale Sayers, and I saw Brandon Katz address this in the chat about how he had a short career and was hurt. I understand that, and I do believe he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame just for how good he was and how innovative he was. But we're talking about the top 5 running backs of all time. Gale Sayers shouldn't be anywhere near that kind of a list. And I respect Gale Sayers, for the record.
I do. The whole Gale Sayers thing, he's and again, I think comparing eras, it's always frustrating because Gale in his era compared to, in today's NFL. But for a guy who had 2 seasons with over 1,000 yards and his career was only literally 6 years, to have him above Jim Brown, Walter Payton, or Barry Sanders, or in that conversation, to me is absurd. I think he's probably on the back end of a top 10 list. If you do top 5, maybe he's outside of it. But still, this list I thought was pretty standard. I didn't know there was 2.
Yeah.
Can you show the list again just so we can react to it? I assumed the running backs, at least top 5 running backs, are pretty standard. I mean, you knew you had to mention Barry. You knew you had to mention Walter Payton. I think Jim Brown, obviously, even if you want to pull Jim Brown was technically a fullback. I don't give a damn. He's a running back. Yeah, I hate that. So He should be in the list. Eric Dickerson, I actually don't mind. I love Eric Dickerson, one of my favorite running backs of all time,
Eric Dickerson, not to interrupt, is another one that I think is egregious for not being on Bijan Robinson's list, but I'll let you continue.
No, 100%. And I think, LaDainian Tomlinson, I think that's ballsy. I don't have a problem with that if you feel that way. Number 2, though, over Walton Payton.
Nope.
Adrian Peterson, nice mention. I don't mind that at all. And again, Barry Sanders should be 1 on both these lists. I don't know how Tyreek Hill could even think about Derrick Henry. Yeah, maybe he's more physically imposing than Barry. There you go. That's a good argument. But there's a reason why Derrick Henry's chasing 2,000 yards, Sam.
Yeah.
He's chasing 2,000 because the great Barry Sanders did it in the 90s. Like, he set the tone for those types of things. And as great as Barry was, everybody now, especially in today's NFL, Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson, you see Bijan. Like, running backs know. They know.
Yeah.
Like, the top 2 running backs in this class, who were each of their favorite running back? Barry Sanders.
Barry Sanders.
Like, it doesn't take a genius to know this information.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. And I see some talk about Earl Campbell, and he obviously had a phenomenal start to his career, one of the best peaks ever, but he's another one who got hurt because of his rushing style.
Yes.
Eric Dickerson, I just want to bring up some numbers on Eric Dickerson because I think he's gotten a little bit underrated by history. He holds the single-season rushing record for yards in a season with 2,105.
It's crazy.
And in his first 2 seasons, he also had probably the best rookie season by a running back ever, 3,913 rushing yards and 32 combined touchdowns in his first 2 seasons, all while having 2 more seasons leading the NFL in rushing. And another name that nobody has even brought up, and I think he gets a little overrated by history, but you can't deny what he did.
Yeah.
How about none other than the all-time rushing leader ever in Emmitt Smith?
Yeah, Emmitt Smith deserves to be on that list over some of the players they list.
I would but still, on my list he's number 5, which I guess by your definition
Yes.
that would be he should be on above some of these. Emmitt Smith had a 5-season stretch. Let me give you those numbers from his 2nd season to his 6th season, in which, let me pull it up, 8,019 rushing yards and 85 touchdowns in 5 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
That is beyond absurd. So it wasn't just longevity. He had an amazing peak as well, although he got to run behind probably the greatest collection of offensive linemen and in his career ever. So I know that knocks him down a notch. I don't think he's as good as Barry, Jim Brown, Eric Dickerson, or Walter Payton, but Emmitt Smith not being on any of these guys' lists I think is a little crazy too.
Yeah, I agree. And again, you see Tyreek Hill's list, and it makes you wonder, well, Tyreek Hill just slapped a fisherman the other day while he was fishing. Tyreek Hill needs to be slapped for that list.
Yes.
Like, you need to be slapped, man, for that list. Maybe I could talk to my guy, the fisherman you slapped. He can get you back because this list is egregious. Like, regardless, what weight does this hold? None. It's his opinion. But I wanted to react to it because I thought, again, these types of lists were consensus. But I guess I'm incorrect here. So I'll tell you what. We'll go to break. When we get back, I got some C.J. Gardner-Johnson discussions I want to get your guys' thoughts on. And Lucas is going to do a deep dive into just safeties in the NFL and where CJ ranks. But before we do that, I got to tell you about our friends over at Big Boy. Because, again, at Big Boy, you could try classic breakfast items like some strawberry hotcakes or mouth-watering red velvet waffles. But if you're not feeling breakfast, get the strawberry chicken bacon wrap or get dessert, including vanilla Oreos, deep-fried vanilla Oreos, or strawberry hot fudge cake, and more at Big Boy.
How would you like to win not 1, but 2 vehicles of your choice? One for you and one for your wife, your girlfriend, or your best bud. Get to Lady Jane's today for an award-winning haircut and automatically enter for your chance to win. Courtesy of Les Stanford Buick GMC of Ferndale. Lady Jane's, open 7 days a week, walk in anytime. It's wicked awesome. Woodward Avenue, the first paved road in America. Woodward Sports, the first sports network born in Detroit and made for Detroit.
Morning Woodward Show, Woodward Sports Network. Thanks for sticking with us. Again, we just got done wrapping up a top 5 list that I thought was pretty consensus. And during the break, Lucas just casually throws in there, what about Frank Gore?
Yeah. Stop it.
Well, what about Frank Gore?
You stop it. You shut your mouth.
He's one of the most consistent running backs of all time.
Oh,
and he was with the 49ers during their dog days with Singletary, with Mike Singletary as their head coach.
Can't win
so
with
those
them.
are complete dog days, but yet he was still a 13, 14, 1,500 yard back. He gets Alex Smith, he gets Colin Kaepernick, and he, in my opinion, is probably the most consistent running back from rookie season to retirement in NFL history.
See,
okay, let me.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm going to let you go, but I want to let the chat. The chat is the jury. All right, I'm going to let the chat dictate. I'll let the chat kind of simmer a little bit and just register what you just said. Frank Gore deserves to be on a top 5 list. For Sam, what's your response to that?
My response to that is one of the most asinine things I've ever heard in my entire life, Lucas Klotz. And I respect your football acumen. I really do. Frank Gore is obviously a Hall of Famer. He was one of the most consistent and durable backs that I can remember in recent memory, and that is all fair. The problem with Frank Gore is he was never elite or great. Do you want to know how many times he has made a first-team All-Pro? That would be 0.0. You know how many times he has led the NFL in rushing? 0.0. He had one season, his second year, in which he had almost 1,700 yards rushing, which was his one super elite year, but in no other season, if I am looking at it correctly, I want to confirm this because I don't like to give wrong information. Yes, I am correct. In no other year did he have more than 1,215. Stop it with that Frank Gore nonsense. He is closer to being a stat compiler to an all-time top 5 running back.
He is what you call an Iron Man. And he did all the dirty work. Look, maybe top 5's a reach. Okay,
there you go. There you go.
I'll go 6.
Oh, okay,
just
6.
Because Eric Dickerson needs some love. 1 is Barry
bro.
Sanders. 2, I'm going to go Adrian Peterson. 3, I'm going to go Walter Payton. 4, LaDainian Tomlinson. 5, Eric Dickerson. And 6, Frank Gore.
Wow.
That's what I'm rolling
And
with.
then Emmitt Smith is behind Frank Gore.
I got to think. Because
You just said Iron Man, longevity.
Well, here's the thing.
And then Emmitt Smith gets thrown out in the trash.
But there's a couple other.
Okay.
I'll give it to
All
you
right.
just because I can't think of one right now.
I just put a poll up. Is Lucas tripping about Frank Gore? 60% of people say
love
yes.
Frank Gore, bro.
I don't know what you and Frank Gore's, what kind of relationship you guys have, but you're apparently willing to die on the hill for him. So had to just clear that up. I wasn't going to let Lucas get away with that during the break. I had to get the people involved. But I do want to get to this C.J. Gardner-Johnson discussion because USA Today, Lions Wire, shout out to them, and shout out to Jeff Risden. He does great work. And he just wrote an article speaking on where C.J. Gardner-Johnson's ranking is according to Touchdown Wire. They have a list of the top 11 safeties in the NFL. And coming in at number 3, C.J. Gardner-Johnson. And I want to go through the list and get your guys' thoughts. Or Lucas, do you want to start off first? You want me to go through the list and then you can go?
No, you go.
Okay, all right. So I'll go through the list. 11. They got Von Bell. All right, Von Bell, top 11. I mean, it is what it is. Yeah. I think he's solid. That's fine. I don't really care about the 11th best safety. We'll get to 10. Justin Simmons.
That's too low. I think Justin Simmons at 10 is too low.
More.
Okay, so we'll keep going. Number 9 is Tayshaun Gibson Sr. for the San Francisco 49ers. He's above Justin Simmons.
I don't think he should be above Justin Simmons.
Yeah. Well, this list is already. Jesse Bates at 8.
Fair. Yeah.
He had a bounce back year last year.
He did. Kevin Byard.
Yep.
Tennessee Titans.
Yep. Fair.
Yeah, he's solid always.
I don't
year.
think he's better than Justin Simmons. But
No,
I'm not gonna,
but still, I think he's in the top. He's in the top 10. But yeah, better than Justin Simmons. I think we're just pulling at straws at this point. But number 6, they have Javon Holland, your guy, Javon Holland, who's always solid, second-round pick for the the Miami Dolphins. Number 5, Tyrann Mathieu. Is he a top 5 safety still?
I don't think
100%,
so.
he's a top 5 safety. His talent, I see why you're like kind of grimacing, Flannel, but his intellectual play on the football field, he's just always in the right spot at the right time, and he makes an impact on any defense he goes to. I think when you talk about who we just say, Kevin Byard, he's a level above Kevin Byard, so I think that's fair to have him.
When you lay it out that way, I don't hate it, and I like Tyrann Mathieu. I'm forever grateful to him for helping the Chiefs win the 2019 Super Bowl, and I think he's gonna have a gold jacket someday. So yeah, Tyrann Mathieu, I don't hate it.
Yeah, and again, you see this. They have some stats along with it. It says Tyrann Mathieu allowed a passer rating of 53 last season when targeted. Allowed just 6 catches on 14 targets for 71 yards. So Tyrann Mathieu comes in at 6, or excuse me, 5.
He's definitely top 5 when you give me those numbers.
Yeah, and then 4.
Flannel just needs
see
the
the
stats
numbers
to back up what he's thinking.
They register in Sam's mind. It clears. All right, there you go. Jordan Poyer, number 4.
I'm fine with it.
I'm fine with it. I'd probably switch him and Tyrann, but Poyer's still good.
And then coming in at number 3, above Jordan Poyer, above Justin Simmons, above all the other safeties we just named, is C.J. Gardner-Johnson.
Dog.
And again, you look at the stats they listed here on Touchdown Wire about C.J. Gardner-Johnson, and it says here, the 2019 fourth-round pick out of Florida allowed 41 catches on 52 targets for 338 yards, 170 yards after the catch, 4 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 3 pass breakups, and an opponent pass rating of 79.8. And that's kind of the thing with C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Very talented, brings a lot of high-energy guy, high motor. Again, has a knack for the football. It always tends to find him. He led the league in interceptions last year. But he does give up some plays. And that's something that was kind of the criticism of C.J. last year, is he's – I don't want to say boomer bust. I think that's kind of, I don't know if that's the right word to describe it, Sam, but compared to the Matthew stats we just read and the pass rating of 53 on 6 catches on 14 targets, these look a little different when you allow 41 catches on 50 targets for over 300 yards.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I obviously like C.J. Gardner-Johnson a lot. I think that he could end up being the most impactful free agent signing that the Lions got, especially in this upcoming year. But I don't like those coverage stats or those passer rating stats that much. I don't think that he should be above Justin Simmons. I don't think that he should be above Tyrann Mathieu, which I believed before, even before I heard the Tyrann Mathieu numbers. I don't think he should be above Jordan Poyer, but I actually looked at this spreadsheet that our main guy Alex Z in the back he made. He did a great job on this. Where C.J. Gardner-Johnson grades out favorably as compared to the other top safeties. He's tied for the most last season in interceptions while only playing 12 games, which is incredibly impressive with 6. I believe he is tied with Minkah Fitzpatrick and Justin Simmons. I'm sure we're going to hear more about Minkah Fitzpatrick later, who is also great. Tied for second amongst all the top safeties out of 10 safeties in tackles for loss with 5. And he's also tied for second amongst that list of 10 that Alex made a spreadsheet on in passes defended with 10. But he also has some negatives. Yards per target, he was 7th among that group of 10 at 8.6, which is not very good. And his missed tackle percentage was actually the worst out of all of them at 10. And for the record, right, I like C.J. Gardner-Johnson. I think that he's going to be very good. Wouldn't shock me at all if he plays a full season and has his best season ever with the Detroit Lions, including last year. But there's a reason why he didn't make the Pro Bowl last year. There's a reason why there were 4 safeties selected to the All-Pro team, and C.J. Gardner-Johnson wasn't one of them. I don't think he is in that upper echelon of like the Minkah Fitzpatricks is and the Jordan Poyers and the Derwin James and the Hufanga from San Francisco. I don't think he's at that level yet, but it wouldn't shock me at all if he has a great year and is very valuable for the Lions.
Yeah, and again, I want to get to some of these comments. We're going to go to break. When we come back, I want Lucas to get his thoughts on this as well. And again, Eric chimes in. My guy Eric, he says, look at Diggs in Dallas. Yeah, he had a lot of interceptions, but gave up a lot of catches and yards. GJ gets the picks, but keeps the yardage low and only gives up 40 catches last year is not that much. Which is a good way to look at it. I think there's a lot of corners in safety, secondary players that are like that are, go big or go home. I don't think Kirby's that guy either. I know we kind of saw it at times early in his career, but I don't think Kirby would be that guy. I think he's just solid in coverage, point blank. I don't think there's too much to worry about. But again, there is that concern that Chauncey did have that Philadelphia defensive line that does make his job a lot easier. Yeah. But again, I'm not worried about it.
I mean, there still is, to me, a little bit of concern about Kirby Joseph and C.J. Gardner-Johnson giving up big plays, but we're going to see a lot this year, and they both have obviously proven that they can create turnovers with the best of them, and they are both, at least at the end of last season with Kirby Joseph, pretty solid in coverage.
And what about this, too? Jeff Olson, nice name, Jeff, by the way. He said, no Antoine Winfield Jr., trash list. I think that's fair, too.
That's
He's a top 10 safety.
Because I'm assuming that there's 2 spots left. So Derwin James is going to be Mink. I don't know the order, but those are the 2 that's left, right?
Yes.
And so they left Hufanga off there, who, in my opinion, besides CJ, was probably the best safety in the NFL this year. So, yeah, this list is a little shaky. But we'll roll with it. We'll keep going for reviews.
And they did write in this article also that Derwin James, Micah Hyde, Marcus Williams, Xavier McKinney, Antoine Winfield Jr., Jimmy Ward, Devin McCourty didn't make the list from last year. Obviously, Devin McCourty's retired. Not that any of them had horrible seasons. There's just a run of guys who were better last season, and I think deserved more merit. This article was written by Doug Farrer if that's how you pronounce his name. But yes, regardless, we're going to go to break. When we get back, I want your thoughts on it, Lucas, and your thoughts on CJ being the third-ranked safety, according to our guy Doug here. But before we do that, though, Sam, could you tell us where we can get the best insurance from?
Oh, the best insurance, of course, is Swiss Insurance. And now that summer's here, it is important to make sure you are properly covered. Whether it's a grad party or just a group of people over to enjoy the lake or pool, your liability exposure increases significantly in summertime. Let the Swiss Insurance Group review your coverage and make sure you are protected from an unexpected loss. Check us out at swissins.com or call Mark today at 248-800-4177. Again, that is 248-800-4177. Swiss Insurance.
By now you know me, Christina Gennari, as the obvious choice in real estate. And you know my website, soldchristina.com, as your #1 resource for buying or selling your home. Myself, along with my amazing staff, pride ourselves on making your home buying and selling experience a relaxing and easy one. Come see why we are the obvious choice. Christina Gennari at soldchristina.com, the obvious choice in real estate.
We are the network for Detroit by Detroiters. Welcome to the Woodward Sports Network.
We're back. Morning Woodward Show here on the Woodward Sports Network. Jeff Iafrate, Sam Flannel, JB, Lucas Klotz. Thank you guys for sticking with us. We just got done wrapping up where we did last segment. We were talking about CJ Gardner-Johnson being the third-ranked safety according to Touchdown Wire. And we went through all the safeties around CJ. And now, Lucas, I want to get to you on #1, the list. And if you have the list, who you disagree with, who do you don't like, but also CJ being the third-ranked safety in the NFL, according to this list.
I think Derwin James is the best safety in the NFL. I think Minkah Fitzpatrick is a close to, just because Derwin James, what he can do inside the box with the linebacker. I mean, we saw him literally pick up Travis Kelce and throw him on his ass last year. It might have been the season before, I'm tweaking. But Minkah Fitzpatrick can't do things like that. Minkah Fitzpatrick is a very good safety, but for a safety, I want him to be able to hit, which is exactly why I love CJ Gardner-Johnson so much, because, yes, he does give up those big plays, but what he can do inside the box is affecting tight ends and the slot receivers. He can cover the #1 wide receiver all the way down to the tight end just because he's that athletic. I understand he's a little undersized, but I think CJ Gardner-Johnson is easily a top 5 safety in the NFL. Even when he was back in New Orleans, this guy was always solid, and he got better and better and better each year. Now he's linking up with his defensive coordinator. Was Glenn the defensive coordinator in where was he the secondaries coach? I can't remember.
He was the secondaries coach.
Okay, so he's linking up with Glenn again, which is part of the reason he came back. So he's now going to take another step, in my opinion, with all the talent he has around him. I think if you don't think he's a top 5 safety now, you're going to be thinking he's a top 3 safety by the end of the year.
Ooh. Yeah, and also, I mean, you're talking about the relationship between him and Aaron Glenn. Aaron Glenn has known CJ, I mean, since the dude was, like, in his teens. Mm-hmm. So there's a relationship there. I agree with you. I think if you're going to talk about CJ Gardner-Johnson, he's a top 5 safety to me. And you know, last year he led the league in interceptions, production, but also production even though he missed games. Like, that's also the other part of it. New Orleans should have never let him go. But here we are, Philadelphia, now in Detroit with a 1-year deal. This is a guy that I think in Detroit, being kind of the vocal leader, the emotion guy that on this Lions defense, but specifically the secondary, I think he can do wonders for the entire team and their mentality defensively.
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, it wouldn't shock me at all if CJ Gardner-Johnson turns out to be their most valuable free agency acquisition from this past offseason. And I don't think this is talked about enough. I certainly haven't talked about it enough. I will like, you know, do a my bad on this one. CJ Gardner-Johnson missed 5 games and still had 6 interceptions. He played in 12. That's good enough for half an interception per game, which is an absurdly good ratio. And I just think with CJ Gardner-Johnson and Kirby Joseph, who have both shown that they have a nose for the football in the defensive backfield, the Detroit Lions defense will create a lot more turnovers than they did this past season, and that will do wonders for their defense. It wouldn't shock me at all. I'm actually calling for it. CJ Gardner-Johnson and Kirby Joseph will combine for at least 10 interceptions. Yeah. I'm calling that right now.
No, I would double down with you on that. And the thing about CJ is he's played corner, he's playing safety, he's a Swiss Army knife on your defense, and that's just factual. I'll tell you what, go to break. Or no, we just came back from break, actually. Yeah, never mind.
What's on your mind, buddy?
No, because I wanted to take the time, because I don't know if this is the time we should do this. Bring up the Sam Flannel tweet for Ben Wallace. Sam, I want to get your reaction to this.
Any time's good for this.
Yeah, because I wanted to kind of let this simmer a little bit. Somebody tweeted at me something about Sam Flannel. Sam, what's your response to this? Okay, Matthew Paul Price says, Jeff, can you inform your co-host that Ben didn't shut down Shaq in the finals based on the numbers? He says, because their entire game plan was to let him score and shut everyone else down.
Okay, so that is a lot to unpack, and I keep hearing this, and it just drives me more and more insane every single time. So you are saying that what Ben Wallace did on Shaq was important so that Shaq could destroy Ben Wallace in the paint so that they could single cover everyone else. So Ben Wallace gets credit for holding Shaq to averages of 27 and 11 on 63% shooting, while guys like Tayshaun Prince were actually holding Kobe Bryant to an abysmal 38% field goal percentage in the series and 17% from three. When I look at some of those Shaq games, so Ben Wallace did a great job, this amazing job in game 1 of holding Shaq to 34 and 11 on 13 of 16 shooting. I forgot which game it was. It was either game 4 or game 5 where Shaq put up 39 and 20 on 16 of 21 shooting. Ben Wallace didn't shut down shit. It's not a Hall of Fameable skill to hold Shaq, single cover him to 27 and 11 on 63% shooting, which was a lot better than his regular season averages of 22 and 13 on sub 60% shooting. And Shaq in the Houston Rockets series in round 1 averaged 16 and 12. This idea that's even more reason why Ben Wallace should be in the Hall of Fame because he had to single cover Shaq because most teams would have had to double team him so that they could cover Kobe and everybody else.
Yeah,
I get it. He played his role well, Ben Wallace, but that's not a Hall of Fameable skill, getting cooked by Shaq. I'm sorry. Those are just the numbers.
Just because Shaq put up 27 points per game on you does not mean you do not qualify for the Hall of Fame. That is done to a lot of people.
You know what? I want to address that. I'm not saying it disqualifies you. I'm saying it doesn't help you. It doesn't make your case.
No.
That's what I'm saying.
No, and I think people's argument is you can't say, well, he did a great job defending Shaq. He held him to 27 points because the game plan was all on Kobe. It was let Shaq get whatever he wants. We're going to double Kobe. Because, again, typically Ben Wallace, the fact that he was guarding Shaq one-on-one with no help, I know he still averaged 27, but that man is the most dominant basketball player to ever live. Like, just to try and use it against Ben Wallace, I just don't think it makes a ton of sense.
Okay, but why did he dwarf his regular season numbers that season? Why was it his best statistical series of the playoffs that year? That's what I can't hear people explain.
Because they were more than happy with letting Shaq do that. Because how did it work out for him? He averaged 27, but it was a gentleman's sweep.
Okay, that's fair, but why don't guys like Tayshaun Prince get more credit for what they did to Kobe Bryant, and Kobe Bryant get more flack for that disgraceful series he had against the Detroit Pistons? Honestly, I say, and I'm saying this as a Pistons fan who's glad that the Pistons won, the reason why the Lakers lost that series, one of the biggest reasons, is because Kobe selfishly wanted to win Finals MVP. He wanted to be the man.
Yes.
When in reality, Shaq was still the best player on that team.
And they knew that.
And they did know that. And credit to them. And credit to Ben Wallace for playing his role. But that's some role player shit, holding Ben Wallace at 27 and 11.
But it wasn't just Ben either. It wasn't just strictly Ben defending him the entire game.
Okay, but if you want to give
Rashid, it was Ben.
If you want to give an argument to Ben Wallace being in the Hall of Fame, your best argument is for Defensive Players of the Year, not what he did against Shaq.
That's why I say that, and you win the argument when you say that.
And metrically, because I am a very fair guy, I am the arbiter of fair. I looked up his defensive win shares and defensive rating and team defensive rating that year.
And what'd you find?
You found out that he probably deserved at least 3 or 4. And that's fair. That is fair. Unlike Dikembe Mutombo, who's also a fraud. More on him later, by the way.
What is fraudulent about Dikembe Mutombo?
Okay, I wish I fucking knew. I don't. You know what though? Ben Wallace. This is why I love bringing it up, because someone tweeted at me yesterday. And could you throw that tweet up one more time, just so we could reread it and shout out and not get the name of the person who said it, because I got to give credit. And by the way, this doesn't mean come at me on Twitter at Sam, because I'm not going to put up every tweet, but Matthew Paul Price just hit me. It hit a certain nerve of mine. And I just had to throw it up here to get your opinion on it, because this sentiment, Sam, it's not just Matthew. This is probably your most argued against sentiment whenever you talk to somebody. Lindsey Hunter said this exact same thing, but here we are. And you still don't think Ben Wallace is a Hall of Fame?
Absolutely not.
Okay. All right. We'll just
average more than
doubt about it.
Average more than 5.7 points for your career. How about that?
So it's points qualify you in the Hall of Fame.
What did I say the other day?
So is Draymond Green a Hall of Famer?
Draymond Green is a Hall of Famer because he was an excellent playmaker as well. That's fair. And he also had a Game 7 in which he dropped 32, 15, and 9, and Steph Curry choked.
All right.
That's also fair. Defense only is not a Hall of Fameable skill, in my opinion, when it comes to Major League Baseball and the NBA. You have to have either somewhat of an offensive game or somewhat of a bat. That's why Ben Wallace shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame to me. That's why Ozzie Smith shouldn't be in, the St. Louis Cardinals shortstop. And when it comes to Dikembe Mutombo, let me just give you a little bit of a Cliff Notes, like a teaser. When I was doing my deep dive on Ben Wallace, which I did,
Oh, you did?
I actually saw that the bigger fraud when it came to Defensive Player of the Year merchants was indeed Dikembe Mutombo, because in no time during his career did he ever lead the NBA in defensive rating or defensive win shares once. There are Defensive Player of the Years that should be at David Robinson's house, should be at Hakeem Olajuwon's house, that are at Dikembe Mutombo's house because he blocks shots and because he does this. Likability is a reason why people get propped up. That is a fact. Ozzie Smith did backflips. Ben Wallace was undrafted and had the fro. Dikembe Mutombo did this.
Okay, but that's just. I think you're saying. Oh, Ben Wallace was undrafted and had a fro. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with my life. He was undrafted. He had a fro, but also he had Hall of Fame rebounding and Hall of Fame defense. Like the quality in which he played at, the level of his skill at those two things are Hall of Fame caliber.
Okay, but can we argue this?
But because he doesn't score as many points as Sam likes, he's not in the Hall of Fame.
Let me just try to get.
I just want to clarify.
No, and here, let me be a little more gentler about this. Let's agree on this one common ground. I think that one of the things that actually hurts Ben Wallace, there's two things. One, and this wasn't necessarily his fault. If the Pistons win in 2005, I think multiple players from that team are in the Hall of Fame, and if Ben Wallace was one of them, I wouldn't even necessly have that big of an issue with it.
Well, he would have one more NBA championship,
okay,
so of course I hope you wouldn't have an issue with it.
But here's another thing. Ben Wallace, to me, he had a short peak. Is that fair? He had 4 or 5 great years with the Pistons, and everywhere else, he was either mid to an unplayable NBA player. Bulls fans, you know what I'm talking about. Cavs fans, you know what I'm talking about. Magic fan, you know what I'm talking about. Later year Piston fans, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, he probably had a solid, 6-7 year stretch, and then, for the other parts of his career, he wasn't that player. But that stretch, think about it, in 6-7 years, 4 Defensive Player of the Year awards, what he's done, winning an NBA title, being a big reason why, even though you don't agree, but getting there, he was a big reason why. Being a rebound champ, full-time, like I said, 6-time all-defensive team. There's a lot of things that go into it, but regardless, I just wanted to bring that up. I know we can talk all day about Ben Wallace, but get your questions ready, because it's mailbag time, and if it's about Ben Wallace, feel free to chime in if you so choose. We're going to go to break when we come back. It's mailbag, but before we do, could you tell us where we can go work out?
That is Planet Fitness, of course. I seem to have gotten a little bit of a workout in this chair during that last segment, but that's okay for everyone else. And for high schoolers specifically, Planet Fitness is thrilled to allow high schoolers ages 14 through 19 in the United States and Canada to work out for free all summer long, and it goes all the way until August 31st. And if you register today, you can gain access to the club now and maintain it all the way throughout August 31st. And for the rest of us, Planet Fitness is the best gym around. They have memberships starting at only $10 a month. Only $10, Matt Broder, I love your energy. Or you can upgrade to the Black Card to get all the amenities for $24.99 a month. Use any Planet Fitness.
Only $24.99?
Only $24.99. And you can be a baller with the Black Card. But join today. Join today in club online. Visit planetfitness.com. It's Planet Fitness, where your fitness is essential.
At work and at home, we're there with smarter security solutions. featuring complete automation with customized alerts and more. For over 90 years, we've been the company that's been counted on to protect what matters most, all with personalized service and care. Right now, for a limited time, receive a free video device plus free installation with a new home system. Guardian Alarm. We protect Michigan.
All of Detroit's sports teams live on Woodward. All of Detroit's sports coverage lives on Woodward Sports. Driving the best in Detroit sports coverage.
It's mailbag time on the Morning Woodward Show here on Woodward Sports Network, and get your questions ready, and we'll get to as many as we can. Me, Sam Flannel, JB, Lucas Klotz, whoever you got a question for, we'll get to them. Get to as many as we can. Jack asks, Jeff, who is your favorite college football team? Now, this is a question I get often. Like, who's the team you root for in college, and not just football but basketball? I know this is going to sound unrealistic, but none. I don't have a team. Like, my family, my dad is a big Michigan fan. My mother is a big Michigan State fan. I never had a team. Like, I never cared. I was always more for national sport. I watched college sports, but actually rooting, it was Lions, Tigers, Red Wings, and Pistons. I never sat there, and I'll tune into Michigan games. I'll tune into state games when Michigan, I bet my hair on Michigan, so to some extent I believed in them. But I wouldn't say I'm a fan of any of those teams, and now that I'm in this line of work, I think it works. I'm not a fan of either. I get to talk about them, though, which is a lot of fun. Let's see. I saw this question. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Lucian? By the way, appreciate you, bro, for tuning in. He says, Mailbag, if the Lions made the Super Bowl against the Bengals, who do you got? Well, you know the answer to that. Do we even have to go around the room? Anybody want to make a case why the Lions would beat the Bengals? Anybody?
Oh, beat the Bengals? No.
Anybody? Okay. Well,
I mean, I could see it. If the Lions make the Super
Let's go around the room.
right.
Are you really, if you make the Super Bowl and you do that,
Yes.
wouldn't you say by definition the Lions had a great year and probably won 12 or 13 games? And most teams in this, there's no prohibitive underdog in Super Bowls that can't win. I'll just say that. Do I think the Bengals are better right now? Absolutely. Do they have the better quarterback? 100%. But I wouldn't necessarily bet against. I would pick the Bengals, but you can make a case for the Lions. But we're putting the cart way before the horse.
Yeah, like if I got into an alleyway with Francis Ngannou, I would have a chance.
Oh, that's the exact same thing, right?
Like if I got into an alleyway with Francis Ngannou, I would have a chance. Like I would certainly have a chance.
I'm slumping.
But that's
Francis
all
in
I
one
got is a
punch.
chance. All right, some of these other questions, let's get to them. Mailbag. Key asks, you guys should do a Marvel versus Detroit players comparison. Also, what are you guys taking phone calls again? It's been a minute, ducking out Terrell from Florida or something. Well, Terrell, yeah, me and Terrell haven't went at it in quite some time. I do miss Terrell. We got to get him back on the show. But yes, phone lines will be open in the future. We haven't taken any calls, but more so, maybe even tomorrow, Friday, and closer, next week, closer to the season, we'll definitely be taking phone calls. So stay tuned for that. Ransom says, Mailbag. According to Sam, playing mainly defense doesn't make you a Hall of Fame player. Can the same be said about players that only play offense and no defense?
Offense is more important than defense in baseball in the NBA. That's just facts. The point of the game is to put the ball in the hoop and to hit the ball and get on base. To me, and honestly, when it comes to baseball, let me just say baseball really quick. Defense in the glove is not the most important factor in preventing the offense from scoring. That is pitching, as our very own Matt Broder knows all too well. So to me, offense is way more important than defense when it comes to those sports. Not football, though, but baseball and basketball.
Jesse Adams asks, Mailbag, what are some stats you would like to know about yourself in your life? For example, how many cigs have you smoked in your life? Like a statistic,
That's a
I guess.
good question.
Yeah, we'll go around the room. Sam, what statistic, and this is your bread and butter here, a statistic about your life you'd like to know that you wouldn't know off the top of your head?
From back in the day.
Is it how many bodies you have?
No, not how many bodies, because obviously I'm a very, very happily married man now. And shout out to my wife, Nikki. I hope you're watching. Love you. But when it comes to how many times I went out with like the boys in between the ages of 22 and 25, and what percentage of the time I just bombed and struck out, because I was never that much of a ladies' man back in the day until I met my wife. So
no way.
I'd like to. Yeah, I'd like to actually know how many times I just completely flamed out.
Yeah,
the percentage.
I think we could all agree with that one. JB, what about you? Statistic you'd like to know about your life, and does it involve DVDs and does it involve Meyer?
I was gonna say it does involve movies, so I want to know how long I've actually sat and watched movies for in the theater and at home on my couch.
Yeah, you know what? That's always something I wonder too. It feels like a lot of things you process, but then you kind of forget. Like they're in your mind, but how many movies have we actually watched in our lifetime? I couldn't tell you. Broder, you want to chime in? What stat you want to know about your life?
I'd like to know what percentage of my life have I been wearing a hat.
Ooh.
You know, like both playing baseball, sitting in this chair right now. Like, what percentage has there been a hat on my head?
Do you have the camera for Broder?
It's froze right now.
So,
you can hear
Broder
me.
has a hat on. This man always has a hat on.
Look, we can show.
So that does apply.
It's still, but it's there.
Yeah, no, it's still there. That's the frozen. That's the frozen graphic. Lucas, you can chime in here. A good statistic you want to know about your life.
I would like to know how many car accidents I've caused without trying to.
Jesus.
You know, I've never myself been like into a car, but I guarantee there's been times since I was like flying or just like trying to get somewhere, being stupid driving, that I've caused an accident, but you would never know because it could be like 3 or 4 cars behind you because then that person slows down, then that car right there wasn't paying attention and boom, airbags off, possible death, possible injury. I want to know.
That's like the most like Toledo answer. Like you just went like the opposite, like dark. Like we all like, hey, you know, how many movies I've watched, and Lucas is like, how many people I've killed. Or I've taken part in almost killing. It's a crazy
good question.
answer.
You don't ever wonder like, damn, have I hurt somebody without trying to? Am I truly that much of a lethal weapon?
I mean, I just don't incriminate yourself. We'll just leave it at that.
It's not my fault.
No,
They
of course
weren't paying
not.
attention when they were
no,
driving.
there's no evidence either to prove it. So I'll tell you what. For me, statistically, I mean, I don't know. I don't think there's anything. I mean, statistically that I like to know about myself. Maybe more so. The movies was interesting, I guess. How much music I've listened to my entire life, hours from start to finish. How much music I've listened to, that would be interesting. But I'm not that interesting. There's nothing interesting about me.
You're very interesting, Jeff.
But I'll tell you what. Thank you to everybody. Every single one of you for tuning in and staying consistent, staying with the show to the very end. We appreciate you guys. Don't forget, before you leave, subscribe, leave a like, and you can check out this podcast if you missed it live at Spotify, at Apple Music, Morning Woodward Show. Type it in. Leave a 5-star review. We appreciate you guys for sticking with us. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Jeff Iafrate, Sam Flannel, JB, and Lucas Klotz. Until tomorrow, deuces.